Douluo, I'm really not a rice god. This video is purely for entertainment and does not infringe on copyrights or laws. The rights to the novel and image belong to the original author. We do not claim ownership. Don't like waiting and want to listen to this fanfic in full now? Subscribe to our Patreon, where you'll find the best fanfics. Chapter 151, The Road to Hell. Seeking the Moon. Therefore, except for the god of death and the king of slaughter, no one has ever seen the opening of the Hell Road, because everyone who has seen it has died. In other words, they have all become sacrifices for the opening of the Hell Road point, and this is one of the reasons why the king of slaughter is unwilling to open the Hell Road. Every time the Hell Road is opened, a large number of people must be sacrificed, which will seriously weaken the slaughter city for a long time. The fallen who were originally cheering crazily gradually became quiet as the red light landed on the viewing platform. Each fallen's eyes gradually became dull, and then the dullness turned into bloodshot red. It didn't take long, and when the red light formed a huge barrier across the entire hell-killing field, painful screams began to sound from the people who were first exposed to the red light point affected by the red light. Those degenerates seemed to be half crazy, desperately grabbing their faces and bodies. Most of the fallen who were able to survive in the inner city had a certain level of strength, but at this time they used all their strength on themselves, and even their screams contained extremely exciting pleasure. It seems that I have gained unlimited enjoyment in this process of self-abuse. Even though Lingtian had seen all kinds of death in the killing city, just seeing this scene in front of him still made him frown. It's not that I sympathize with these people, it's just that this way of death makes people a little uncomfortable. Compared to this kind of slow death, Lingtian prefers a more direct approach. It is said that with the strength of the king of slaughter, it is easy to kill these people. The reason for adopting this method is purely because of the bad taste of the king of slaughter, right? At the same time, the situation on the field became more serious. The skin is rolled, the flesh and blood are blurred, and blood is everywhere. They even had their own internal organs ripped out of their bodies. They completely fell into madness and would not stop until the end of their lives, and more degenerates are undergoing such changes until it spreads to the whole place. Each and every degenerate joined the ranks of self-torture. Blood was sprinkled all over the hell-killing field, and screams could be heard one after another at the same time. The blood scattered on the ground began to gather together, and a large amount of blood flowed, like small streams, along the inconspicuous small pipes under the auditorium to the center of the killing field. It was clearly visible that countless winding red liquids flowed into the field like small snakes, and finally formed a strange pattern painted with blood. It was a bloody bat with 9 heads. Although it was a bit abstract, it could still be distinguished. As each fallen person died, the king of slaughter immediately activated the formation on the ground, and a dazzling bloody light burst out from the formation, turning into a blood-colored light pillar. This is the passage to hell. I wish you good luck on the road to hell. Looking at the bloody light pillar rising in the competition venue, the king of slaughter said in a cold voice, "Is it okay to just go in?" "That's right." After receiving the response from the king of slaughter, Lingtian walked directly into the blood-colored light pillar without hesitation. When he stepped into the blood-colored light pillar, Lingtian only felt his eyes go dark and felt a sense of weightlessness, as if he had traveled through time and space. I don't know how long it took, but the blood around me gradually faded away. After his vision recovered, Lingtian found himself in a dark world, standing on a circular platform about 5 meters in diameter. Everything around him showed a faint blood red color. Outside the circular platform, with a diameter of 5 meters under his feet, there was an abyss, and at the bottom was a huge blood pool. The blood red light came from there, barely illuminating the darkness. This space. In addition, a slender path, less than half a foot wide and only wide enough to accommodate 2 feet standing at the same time, extended along the platform into the darkness. This should be the road to hell. Lingtian pondered for a moment and summoned the Bingji sword. With a thought in his mind, he stepped on the Bingji sword and quickly shuffled along this long and narrow path into the darkness, while at the same time releasing a part of his soul power to warn the surrounding environment. There are many dangers on the road to hell, so you must be fully prepared. After flying for about half an hour, Lingtian suddenly frowned and hovered in mid-air, but he heard a slight buzzing, which seemed to be the sound of flapping wings. Looking at Lingtian attentively, he suddenly saw a group of bloody bats rushing over not far away. The blood red bats were like miniature versions of the blood red bats left on the ground of the hell killing fields. Although each of their blood bats was about a foot long, their huge wings spread out more than 1 meter. Those blood red bats flew very fast, and they were already close in a short time point. Their eyes were also blood red. When they found the target, they made a squeaking sound from their mouths and exposed their sharp fangs. Thousands of blood bats flapped their wings together and brought a fishy wind. The pungent smell made Lingtian frown. So many bats, Lingtian thought, and a chill suddenly flashed across his palms. Tiny ice crystals condensed around the body, and a huge ice torrent slowly formed. Gradually, the ice torrent became larger and larger, and finally turned into a terrifying ice storm, extreme cold storm. As soon as he finished speaking, Lingtian closed his hands and then released them. The terrifying ice storm broke free and raged towards the group of bats ahead. The scarlet bats kept rushing into the storm, but they could never escape the scope of the storm point. The sharp ice crystals mixed in the storm constantly penetrated their bodies. Harsh screams continued to sound, and their bodies fell from the air like raindrops in the storm into the pool of blood under the abyss. In an instant, thousands of bloody bats were slaughtered. Even the dark gold three-headed bat king sitting in the rear didn't even react at all, and all his people had been killed by Lingtian alone. Squeak. A sharp and harsh sound suddenly sounded. Immediately afterwards, the dark gold three-headed bat hanging directly in front of the road opened its 10-meter long terrifying wings behind it, and the dark sky of Luo kingdom struck towards Lingtian's position. The dark gold three-headed bat is finally here. Seeing the giant bat coming back to him, Lingtian, who had been prepared for a long time, had no worries in his heart. Although the dark gold three-headed bat is very powerful and is close to the Soul Emperor, its body's defense ability is very fragile. As long as you seize the opportunity to hit its vital position, it can be killed with one blow. Bing go. When he saw the dark gold three-headed bat swooping towards him, he jumped onto the narrow path below, and at the same time, the ice G-sword turned into a blow light and shot out of the air. Chapter 150. To the momentum is like a broken bamboo, seeking the moon. Although the dark gold three bats want to avoid this sword, Lingtian obviously won't make it succeed. A very cold breath instantly covered the dark gold three bats. Although it could not completely frozen its huge body for a while, as long as it could slow down its speed, it was enough. Flutter. The Bing Eye sword was turned back, and the three heads of the dark gold three bats were cut off in an instant. At this moment its huge body became a burden. Before he had time to make a scream, the dark gold three-headed bat that was enough to match the Emperor Soul Emperor was too late to release a skill. The headless corpse of the dark gold three bats fell into the blood river, and the first level of the hell road was successfully passed. After taking interest in the same place, Lingtian walked again and moved forward quickly along the narrow road extension. As the hell road is getting deeper and deeper, the position of the blood pool below seems to be getting higher and higher. You can faintly see dark red on both sides without bowing, and the surrounding air is getting hotter and hotter. But fortunately, Lingtian released the ice god field, and the cold air was expelled instantly. Suddenly, a cool feeling spread throughout the body, and it was refreshing around. Not only the temperature was reduced a lot, but even the burning, the turbid air became pure. Over half an hour over time. Continue to advance on the road of hell. A huge dark red monster snake entangled on the road of hell in front suddenly came into Lingtian's eyes. There are 9 rays behind this strange snake. Each ray looks like a bright red mushroom, which seems to be flowing in at. The length of the body is at least 10 meters. 10 liang snakes. The original head, coupled with the head and the 9 protrusions behind it, seemed to have 10 heads. So it was called 10 louder yang snakes. Lingtian saw 10 louder yang snakes, and the 10 liang snakes obviously saw Lingtian. The tongue on the narrow road slowly raised, and a pair of golden red eyes suddenly became bright like a lantern. At the same time, the sound of snake mouth was like a baby crying like a baby, and the 9 sarcoma behind it began to emit golden red glory. Bing Yan. Looking at the 10 liang snakes in front of him, Lingtian didn't hesitate, drank it lightly. Like the previous killing of the dark gold 3 bats, the Bingjian sword came out instantly, cutting into the 10 liang snakes in the distance. 10 liang snakes are indeed a flood and deserted beast that guards the second level of Hell Road. The moment it inducts Lingtian attack, it immediately vigilant, open a big mouth of a fiery red light suddenly sprayed out of its mouth. With it the strong smell instantly annihilated the ice blue light pointers. After doing all this, there was a touch of lustrous light in the bottom of the Ten Lauder's eyes, and looked at Lingtian proudly pointed seems to be saying, what can you do? But before it was proud of it, the big giant sword suddenly burst out. In its incredible eyes, it directly penetrated the head of the 10 Lauder snakes. 10 Liang snakes had a sudden meal, making a painful wailing sound. Bang! Immediately, under the puncture of Bingjian's sword, the head of the 10 Lauder Yang snakes slipped suddenly, and the dark red blood splashed out. Then the darkened pupils of the darkened golden snakes of Liang snake could not help but fade down. Although the corpse was still entangled on the road of hell, it was already dead. The other 10 martyrs Yang snakes did not make the other moves, so they fell under the Bingtian's Bingjian sword. However, although the 10 Liang snakes are dead, Lingtian has not let go of its body. In this guy's body, there is something good. When I moved the Bingjian sword, I cut out again, cutting through the 9 sarcoma of the 10 Lauder's head and the 9 sarcoma behind the body, and instantly emitted dark golden liquid condensed into a group of light in the air. Sure enough to hide here. Immediately, Lingtian's right hand was moved, and under attraction of an invisible suction, the golden red light had fallen into his palm. Wait until the light scattered the golden red ball that has been condensed. It's my hand. Looking at the golden red ball in the palm, Lingtian's face showed a satisfactory smile. Flood and deserted beasts, 10 martyrs sun snakes. It is extremely poisonous. Adults can be more than 10 meters long. They have the strongest fire poison of snakes out of the world. If it gets the color in the earth. The supreme of the snake. And this golden red ball is the inner dan of the 10 Lauder like snakes. The original book has evolved Mahanjan's martial arts. It can be seen that it is a treasure that is not inferior to the treasure of Zion Pinling KO. Only if the 10 Lisis snakes find an opportunity to explode, Lingtian will never win so easily. But now it is already Lingtian's loot. Inner Dan of the fire attributes just gives sistership. Although Lingtian does not know that Qian Zuxu's martial arts have a tendency to develop to the seraph, but her original 6-wing angel Wuhan has a fire attribute, so this inner Dan is appropriate to Qian Yixu. After putting away the Needon, Lingtian did not pay attention to this huge python anymore, and once again stepped on the bodies of the Bingai sword across 10 martyrs, and quickly moved forward again. After spending the level of 10 Liang snakes under the road in front of hell, the terrain of the blood river is getting higher and higher, and it is getting closer to the road of hell. The red light blooming from the blood river has become a bit dazzling, and the temperature brought by the blood river is getting higher and higher, but Lingtian has the ice sword to protect the whole body, which has little impact on him. Because the previous treatment is that the hunting does not consume much soul power, and the particularity of the 3rd level. The speed of Lingtian has not slowed down. How much along the martyrdom? Hell Road 1st stage, 3-headed dark gold bat. Hell Road 2nd pass, 10 Liang snakes. The 3rd level of Hell Road has no enemies, or this level does not have a clear enemy. Because the blood rivers below are getting higher and higher, the high temperature of the blood river will evaporate the blood inside, and turn into the invisible evil atmosphere in the air. They seduce the roots of the challenger's killing key, but they cannot stop the murderousness from being released. Otherwise, they will inevitably be swallowed by the horrible evil gas in this hell road. Therefore, through this hell road, it is not only necessary to have enough strength, but it must be passed as short as possible. The longer the time to stay here, the deeper due to the evil atmosphere. Then, I'm afraid that I can never go out. And this is the last level of the killing capital of the killing capital, the demon. Only by maintaining a smooth heart in the erosion of the evil atmosphere can we be the last level of the hell road, to become the capital to kill the gods. But under the huge evil atmosphere, the hot evil plasma, and the influence of its huge killing atmosphere. What kind of determination to persist from here is it? No wonder the number of killers of the killing capital is so scarce. Does Lingtian need help? At this time, Guzioran in the body also felt an unusual atmosphere, and immediately asked about the current situation of Lingtian. It's okay, Lingtian said indifferently. Then, be careful, get Lingtian's answer. Guzioran was no longer worried, and then returned to the space to continue to cover up the consciousness. The Last level, Reo, is a stable mood of Lingtian, and it can't help but show joy. On the impact of this evil spirit, he can easily suppress it. Because the ice god's field can block the impact of the evil breath, and Lingtian has never taken Bloody Mary, which makes him rarely distinguish the killing of the killing in the body, so the most difficult level has nothing to do. Difficulty. However, although it has not had much impact on Lingtian, it still cannot stay here for a long time. Lingtian took a deep breath and wrapped himself completely with his soul. Immediately after her acceleration, Bing Yan's sword turned into a flowing light, moving towards the end of Hell Road. In the abyss on both sides of the narrow road, the dark red liquid rolls and flows. Yes, it is blood, but these bloody liquids have the temperature of magma. After a while, as the temperature increased, the plasma on both sides rose. Lingtian knew that the distance was not far away from exports. After a quarter of an hour, Lingtian finally saw the final exit point. I saw at the end of the site, a steep cliff appeared. At the top of the cliff is a circular exit like a volcanic mouth. This exit is covered by an oval white mountain light curtain and leads to the outside world. Chapter 153 Attempt to fuse. Seeking the moon. However, the location of the Hell Road under the cliff has been covered by a pool of boiling hot blood, and it has spread for nearly a kilometer. However, this is not difficult for Lingtian at all. The Bingji sword accelerated across the blood pool and entered the oval white light curtain. Whoosh, as Lingtian entered the white light curtain, everything around him seemed to be changing, and he suddenly felt as if his body had entered a special world. Surrounded by a piece of snow white nothingness, Lingtian put away the ice G sword and slowly landed on the ground. The next moment, countless icy breaths poured into Lingtian's body and finally flowed and converged on the Bingji Yanshang in his right hand, killing. God Realm. A brand was condensing on Bingji Yanshang, and a cold light flashed across the eyes of the instant Lingtian, who was about to take shape. He wants to pass the road to hell, not to obtain the realm of the god of death. Rather, to absorb, refine, and analyze the killing god realm, intercept the wisp of energy from the Shura realm, and integrate it into your own nice god realm. In this way, you can not only improve your own strength, but also gain a better understanding of the realm of God Shura. If you face Shura God again in the future, you can increase your chances of winning. Leo. Go. Suppress this power, and don't let this breath spread, just leave it to me. Go. Zioran had known Lingtian's plan for a long time, but he still warned in a deep voice, field fusion is not child's play. If you can't succeed, don't force the fusion. It's okay if the domain fusion is successful, but if it fails, the spirit acting as the carrier will suffer a devastating blow. Although the Bingji Yanshuang is a divine weapon and will not be destroyed by energy, it still takes a lot of time to restore the martial spirit to its original state. I see. Lingtian nodded and then said no more. With a thought, the ice god's domain was instantly released from the ice giant frost, completely enveloping the killing god's domain that was about to leave its mark. The god of killing domain is only the prototype of the Shura domain, and is naturally no match for the god level domain. Soon, it was completely enveloped by the ice god realm. The ice god realm continuously impacted the killing god realm, disintegrating it and decomposing a trace of the energy of the Shura realm contained in that point at the same time. In the process, the imprint left by the god of death domain just now was also eliminated. The ice blue energy envelops the blood red energy. No matter how hard the blood red energy struggles, it cannot break away from the ice god's domain, and can only be constantly eroded and plundered by it. At the same time, the city of killing, the bloody abyss, the whole of Lingtian Palace. Master, Lingtian has entered the road to hell. Shu knelt down on one knee and said respectfully, while secretly raising his head to observe the reaction of Zuzu, the master of the killing palace. Finally, the wait is here, Zu. When he stood up slowly in the darkness, complex expressions gathered on his face, and eventually turned into a cold smile. The last step of the plan can be executed. Remember to go all out, don't worry, Lord. A ruthless look flashed in Zishu's eyes, and he cupped his hands and said, this subordinate will definitely not leave any hidden dangers. Leave it to you, Zu. Yi nodded with satisfaction, a trace of imperceptible pride flashing across the corner of his mouth. Then he waved his hand to indicate that Zishu could go down. My subordinates resign. Zishu bowed respectfully, then immediately left Lingtian Palace and quickly headed towards the exit of Hell Road. ZMO. What is he going to do? Could it be that it's not good? After Zishu left, a slender figure slowly emerged. Looking at his retreating figure, he suddenly thought of something. The look in his eyes suddenly changed, and then he moved towards the direction Zishu left. At this moment, inside Lingtian Palace. Zuyi has completely sealed the entire hall, and no one can enter the hall. Then, he came to the training room in the palace, sat down in a strange posture, and as the soul power in his body continued to surge, a realm immediately covered him. The aura coming from this realm is very strange. The blood red appearance is similar to that of the death god realm, but it has an extra aura of death and evil compared to the death god realm. However, there is a flaw in the right corner of the field, which prevents the field from reaching perfect release. However, at this moment, wisps of cold energy were continuously integrated into the incomplete field in front of him. This cold energy is exactly the energy in the realm of the god of death. At this moment, Zuzu used a special method to draw a small part of it. Although it is only a small part, it is enough for him to perfect his field. With the continuous influx of energy, the aura coming from Zuzui's domain is getting stronger and stronger, and it seems that it will be completed and perfected at any time, becoming a truly complete domain. Soon, my field will be successful soon. Seeing the field that was about to be completely perfected, even Zhu Wei, the master of the killing palace, couldn't help but get excited. Boom, in an instant, a powerful aura suddenly swept out of his body, and the bloody field opened completely, instantly covering the entire Lingtian Palace. Feeling the huge improvement from the field, Zhu Wei couldn't help but burst out laughing. I still want to thank the descendant of the ice god. Not only did he help me improve my field, but he also allowed me to complete the 6th assessment. So in order to repay you, my subordinate, I will send you to sleep here forever. Zhu Yi murmured, and at the same time he opened his hands to cover his face, but he could not hide the smile at the corner of his mouth. At the same time, in the white portal. The integration of fields has also reached the most critical time. At this time, the blood red light in the killing god realm, which is wrapped by the ice god realm, has become increasingly dim, and it seems that it will be completely absorbed by the blue light at any time. But at this time, you need to be more careful. Because the remaining faint light is precisely the core of the killing god realm. It contains a trace of the power of the Shura realm. Shura god, God King. Ice god, a first level deity. If the ice god realm was in its prime, it would be easy to absorb this Shura realm. But now Lingtian's strength is not at its peak, and the energy it can release from the ice god realm is even less than 30% of its peak state. Coupled with the natural suppression of the lower gods by the God King, it is extremely difficult to absorb this last ray of energy. Clang. Clang. The energies of the two realms collided again. Although the red light dimmed a bit, it still flickered firmly in the blue light. Lingtian Guziaoran hesitated and looked at Lingtian. Leo. Gu, I will try one last time. If it still doesn't work, I will give up. Lingtian was silent for a moment, and said in a deep voice, as long as you know it yourself, Gu. Xiaoran saw that Lingtian was already in control, so he stopped talking about returning to the consciousness space. Chapter 154 Ice G Realm. Seeking the moon. Holding his breath, and concentrating on the gods, he started his last attempt. The ice god's domain exerted all its strength to burst out with dazzling light, and the blue energy continuously impacted and tried to disintegrate and absorb the red energy inside. Bang bang bang. But no matter which method is used, the red energy remains unchanged. While seeing the scene in front of him, Lingtian had no choice but to helplessly shake his head, and could only give up the tempting idea of absorbing this trace of Shura domain. After all, if the fusion continues forcibly, problems may occur with the Wuhan. Forget it. It would be good to absorb part of the god of death domain. Lingtian sighed. Just when he was about to take back the ice god's domain, the few tiny traces of blood left by the Shura god on the Bingji sword suddenly lit up. When he sensed the power of the Shura domain, immediately afterwards, the energy that was being pulled took the initiative to merge with the ice god realm. The two who were originally unable to fuse despite all their efforts, now merged together smoothly without any resistance. and red and blue lights suddenly intertwined together. Boom. Immediately afterwards, the new realm suddenly spread to all directions, completely covering the entire space in just an instant. The ground was covered with frost and snow fell from the sky. An icy chill enveloped the entire realm. Murderous intent is everywhere, and evil aura is pressing. Invisible murderous aura spreads throughout the entire field. The new domain perfectly encompasses the perfect characteristics of the Ice God domain and the Killing God domain. It not only has the Ice God domain's ability to freeze everything, but also inherits the increase in its own momentum from the Killing God domain. Just think about what happens once the opponent is covered by Lingtian's domain. In addition to having to endure extreme cold and ice, his own attributes will continue to weaken, and Lingtian's strength will be horribly improved by the increase of the two, and as Lingtian's soul power increases, the intensity of the field weakening will continue to increase. Now it is only at the primary stage that it can weaken the opponent's ability by 20%. If Lingtian's cultivation reaches a realm of titled Douluo, it will be even more terrifying. Success. Gu Zioran asked in disbelief. In his opinion, after so many failures, it has been proved that the two fields cannot be integrated, but he did not expect that this last attempt would actually succeed. Well, it worked, although it is not clear exactly what the reason is. The two fields have indeed been perfectly integrated. Brush with a thought, Lingtian takes back the new territory. Countless rays of light poured into the Bingji sword, and the brilliance that bloomed instantly enveloped it. After a while the light dissipated. When he saw the Bingji sword at a glance, the red blood stain on the Bingji sword disappeared and was replaced by a lavender line that surrounded the sword and seemed to be the mark of a new realm. The mark looked like a snowflake surrounded by a circle of blood. When the Frostian sheath was separated from the Bingji sword, the snowflakes and blood patterns on the lavender lines were also divided into two. Branded on the sheath body and sword body respectively. Let me call you Bingji realm. Looking at the lavender lines on the Bingji sword, since it is a product of the fusion of two realms, it is no longer appropriate to call it the original Ice God realm. So Lingtian thought for a moment and decided to name the new realm after Bingji. For the Ice realm, I didn't expect you to be able to fuse successfully, Gu Zioran said in surprise. I didn't expect it either. Lingtian sighed softly. He was about to give up, but he didn't expect that the two would merge together at the last moment. Since you succeed, go out quickly, Gu Zioran said deeply. Lingtian slightly jaw head. After all, although the sight of Shura is obstructed, it is still waiting for other things to go out for insurance. Immediately, Lingtian nodded and walked towards the white portal in front. It's finally over. After looking at the killing capital of the last glance, Lingtian turned his head and looked at the outside world full of expectations. After spending more than a year in the killing capital, although the strength has been moving forward, the killing and fighting day after day also made Lingtian feel disgusted. He doesn't want to stay here for a moment. And there are people who cherish it outside and have been waiting for his return at Prince House. Sister Zhu here, waiting. I will go back soon. Because of this waiting for a long time, in a light words, Lingtian no longer does any stay, and a portal that turns into the white light without nostalgia. The white light completely shrouded it. There was another feeling of turning around. Everything around was changing, and after a few seconds, Lingtian appeared in a thick jungle. Behind the jungle is a small town of killing. The existence of killing is the bottom of the killing town, and the hell road is actually a road that returns from the ground to the ground. Because of this, the blood pool at the bottom of the ground will always float up. Step. Finally. Come out. Lingtian stepped on the hills and looked around to show joy. After a while, the smile converged and the feelings of thoughts appeared in the eyes. A deep breath, a pleasant expression on his face. The four sides of the jungle and hills are all on the four sides. The fresh air instantly enters the heart and lungs, and the killing capital will be forgotten for so long. He is about to forget what is the taste of normal air. I can go back soon. Thinking of Qian Renxue, Lingtian's mouth raised a smile. Seeing this scene, Gu Zioran skimmed his lips, and he spit out with a white glance. Cut. I think of the guy again. The sour smell of love. Envy? Lingtian joked. Uncle Ben will not envy Guzioran said with his chest and proudly point while talking. Walk down the hillside point, and on the other side, the castle deep in the killing capital point. The king of the killing was sitting on the throne, staring at the bloody mayor's glass in his hand, and seemed to be thinking about what he was thinking. Suddenly, he seemed to feel something, got up and walked to the window, to look at a certain direction. It really inherited the field of killing gods. Immediately after he drank the Bloody Mary in the cup, a mockery smile appeared on the cold face. But it is a pity, just inherited the field of killing the gods, it will fall. This is afraid of killing the capital, the fastest killing god. Point. The king of the killing shakes the glass in his hand, watching the scarlet blood in the cup, murmured. Point. The capital of killing does not need to kill god. Point. It is enough to have a king of killing. At this time, the capital of killing. Point. Lingtian has gone out of the hill, and is holding the map school in the direction. The direction of Qian Dou city should be here. Looking at the surrounding environment and the identification on the map, Lingtian finally distinguished the general direction of Qian Dou city. Chapter 155 Assassination, Lingtian and -039, S decision. But just when he summoned the Bingji sword, and was about to leave, Lingtian, be careful, Guzioran instantly felt a cold killing intent, and at the same time, he covered Lingtian with his own power, and the pale golden light protected him like a golden bell. Point. Brush. As soon as he finished speaking, blood-colored light shot out quickly. Point. Boom. The blood light hit the golden mask, instantly stirring up countless smoke and dust on the ground. With the ripples on the mask, the attack was finally resolved. It actually blocked it. A slightly surprised hoarse voice suddenly sounded from the spot. Point. Then a mysterious man wearing a mouse mask suddenly appeared. His whole body was shrouded in a black robe, and his faintly exposed scholar eyes made people shudder. Interception. Looking at the mysterious man who suddenly appeared, Lingtian's pupils narrowed, and he quickly distanced himself. Point. At the same time, countless thoughts flashed through my mind. Point. Who is this Renren? Why did he intercept and kill himself at the exit of the killing city? Although he has been guessing the identity of the person coming, the movements of Lingtian's hands did not stop, and the Bingji domain quickly spread to the surroundings with Lingtian as the center. At the same time, the sword shadow flashed, and the Bingji sword intent was slashed out instantly. Point. In an instant, two icy blue sword lights appeared in the shape of a cross, slashing towards Zishu with a fierce murderous intent and icy coldness, leaving every inch of frost on the path they passed. Point. However, Zishu completely knocked away the sword light with one palm, as expected of the person whom the Lord of the Palace values. Although he was not seriously injured, he was still surprised by Bingji's chill. What kind of strength does this guy have? Seeing that his attack was easily neutralized, Lingtian's expression instantly turned ugly. He originally thought that this guy's strength was only about the Soul King to Soul Emperor, but what is happening now is definitely not the only one. Point. And who is the palace master he accidentally mentioned just now? Who is going to deal with me? The person who came here is very strong, at least as strong as Contra. At the same time, Guzioran's words also confirmed Lingtian's conjecture. Point. Contra still at least has the strength of Contra. Thinking of this, Lingtian put away his thoughts and his face became more solemn. Point. Even though he had killed many Contrats in the killing city, they were all under restricted soul skills. Once he could use soul skills, let alone soul Douluo, even if he was a soul emperor, he would not kill them. Point. You can definitely beat it. Point. This is really troublesome. Leo. Gu, can you help me improve my soul power? Lingtian asked in a deep voice. I can help you be promoted to Soul Saint, Guzioran said in a deep voice. After pondering for a moment, the Soul Saint level can't be improved any further? Lingtian asked with a slight frown. My energy is very violent. With your current strength, rising to Soul Saint is already the limit. No matter how much energy you have, you simply can't control it. Guzioran explained with a solemn expression. How long will it last? A quarter of an hour at most. I see. Lingtian took a deep breath. The strength of the Soul Saint for a quarter of an hour was his limit. Although it was a bit reluctant, he could still give it a try with the Ice G domain. Please, Leo Gu. Besides, his goal is not to defeat Zishu, but to return to the killing city. That's right, it's the city of killing. Point. He has no help from the outside world, and it is safest only to return to the killing city. Point. Don't forget, He is now the god of killing in the killing city. In the outside world, he is no match for Contra. But if he returns to the killing city, that may not be the case. Contra without soul skills is like a tiger without its claws. Even if we are defeated by then, our form will be much better than now. Hope everything goes well. Thinking of this, Lingtian's figure flashed across from Zishu. At the same time, the aura around him was also increasing, but his face became paler and the soul power in his body became more and more difficult to control. Boom. Lingtian bit the tip of his tongue and stabilized his mind. The next moment, the aura of the soul saint exploded instantly. Although it was a bit superficial, it was still a real soul saint. 4 ice blue soul rings surrounded him. Although the soul power was temporarily enhanced to the soul saint level, the number of soul rings remained unchanged at 4. However, this has no impact on Lingtian. In fact, the soul ring has little restriction on the release of his soul skills. He knows the trajectory of the soul power of many soul skills. In other words, as long as he has enough soul power, he can release soul skills without a soul ring. The name of Ice God is not something you call casually. The soul power has actually increased. Seeing this scene, a look of surprise flashed in Zishu's eyes, but it was quickly replaced by cold murderous intent. Useless struggle. In his eyes, neither soul saint nor soul sect is his opponent. Die. As soon as he finished speaking, Zishu waved his hand and 5 streaks of blood shot out again. Bang bang bang. However, the result was beyond Zishu's expectation. His second attack was blocked by the golden light. Interesting, it can still be blocked. Looking at the golden light shield that had just blocked his attack, Zishu's scarlet eyes showed a look of surprise, but more importantly, he was confident. It was just a defensive soul tool, and he was confident that he could break it open. 2 yellows, 2 purples, 5 blacks, 9 soul rings surrounded him impressively. Title Douluo. Seeing this scene, Lingtian's expression became even more solemn. The gap between Soul Douluo and Title Douluo is not just a tiny bit. With his current Soul Saint level soul power, he still has some hope of fighting against Soul Douluo, but he has absolutely no chance of winning against Title Douluo. Hateful. How could a Title Douluo appear in a place like this? Escape. Get out of here. A Title Douluo was something he couldn't handle. Rush back to the killing city as quickly as possible. Only in this way can you have a chance to survive. Lingtian didn't hesitate at all and immediately changed his original tactics and used Ice G sword flash one after another to flash in the direction of the killing city. I originally wanted to leave you with some dignity. Looking at Lingtian, who turned around and ran away, Zishu's eyes glowed red. The 6th soul ring under his body continued to release a brilliance as deep as the night. A cruel and bloodthirsty smile appeared on his face. The 6th soul skill, Blood Shadow Magic Arrow. Zishu grabbed it with his big hand, and the bloody soul power condensed in his palm, turning into a magic bow with a black bow and a bloody bowstring point. As soon as Zishu drew the bow, 9 magic arrows condensed and rushed toward Lingtian. Whoosh whoosh. The 9 magic arrows have locked onto Lingtian's figure, and no matter how he changes his position, he cannot escape. After trying several times to no avail, Lingtian stopped. He understood that he had to deal with these 9 magic arrows before he could return to the killing city. Arrows. Then use this trick. As soon as he finished speaking, the cold soul power condensed into arrows in midair. Frost arrows. This is the best solution at the moment. The soul power consumed is not much, just used to resist attacks. The next moment Lingtian waved his hand. The 9 condensed ice arrows were like giant frost dragons, roaring towards the 9 rushing magic arrows. Boom. The frost arrows collided fiercely in the air, cancelling out Zishu's 9 magic arrows. Although the attacks of the 2 people had cancelled each other out, the sky turned completely dark, and blood shadows and ice fragments mixed together and fell from the mid-air like meteors. Lingtian also took advantage of this opportunity and once again launched the Bing G sword flash and rushed to the killing town. Entering the killing city is his only hope. But how could the Title Douluo's issue, who was chasing behind him, let Lingtian escape from his grasp? Do you think you can run away? Zishu smiled solemnly, and a scarlet blood light lit up on his forehead. At the same time, the 5th 1000-year soul ring flashed with black light. The 5th soul skill follows you everywhere like a shadow point. The next moment, Zishu's figure turned into a blood shadow, leaving a pungent smell of blood in the air, and at the same time it flew towards the direction of the twinkling spirit sky point. Although it is not a space flash, it is still very fast point. After releasing the Ice G sword flash several times, the originally abundant soul power was now only less than 30%. Looking at the killing town not far ahead, I cast the Bing G sword flash once at a distance, just enough to enter the killing town. It'll be there soon. With or thought in his mind, Lingtian used his soul skill again. Bing G sword flash. In an instant, his figure disappeared again. Just when his figure was about to appear in the killing town, a bloody barrier suddenly appeared and blocked him in front of the town. What's going on? The Ice G sword slashed at the barrier, but was unable to break it. The thing he was most worried about happened. His intentions would be seen through by the people behind him, and now there was no way to enter the killing town. The speed is good. At the same time, Zishu's cold voice came one after another. Give up. You can't break this cage with your soul power. Soul bone skills. Bloody cage. It can cover a space and at the same time greatly increase its own strength. It can last for 5 minutes in total, and it cannot be broken, except by soul masters of the same level as his soul power. It is an excellent ceiling soul skill for dealing with soul masters who are not as powerful as yourself, and preventing them from escaping. At this moment, it is overqualified to deal with Lingtian. However, in order to prevent accidents, Zishu decided to use this soul skill. After running away for so long, it's time to end. A cold voice came from all directions, and at the same time, the blood shadows in the sky shuttled through the space and finally condensed into a huge bloody figure. At the same time, the 8th 10,000-year soul ring was shining with dark light. The 8th soul skill, bloody mountains and rivers. Zhuang stretched out his hand, and soul power gathered in his hand. Countless sticky blood shot up into the sky and finally condensed into a bloody palm in front of him. Die. As soon as he finished speaking, the blood shadow fell with a palm. It was 3 feet tall at the beginning, and it continued to grow as it flew in. By the time it flew in front of Lingtian, it was already 5 feet tall. Boom. The bloody palm keeps approaching Lingtian. This is the biggest crisis he has faced in his life. Something is going to happen. Titled Douluo's full blow was simply not something he could resist now. Leo Gu raised my soul power to title Douluo. Even if I'm exploded by your energy, it will be better than dying here as a coward. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelos. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 156, another titled Douluo. Qiu. Looking at the bloody palm, so close at hand, Lingtian made an instant decision. Rather than die under Zishu's bloody palm without any resistance, it would be better to gamble on increasing his soul power. Once. Compared to sitting around and waiting for death, there is still a glimmer of hope. Lingtian, there is no need to fight for his life. Just when Lingtian had made up his mind, Qian suddenly said, as long as you can hold on for 3 minutes, I can take you out of here. 3 minutes. Leo Gu, what are you going to do? Lingtian instinctively felt something was wrong and asked in a deep voice, don't worry, I will definitely take you out. Speaking of this, a look of determination flashed in Qian's eyes. Now, that's the only way. He originally thought that according to their plan, they could get rid of the assassination in other ways. But now the road into the killing city was blocked, and the situation deteriorated in an instant, which caught him off guard. Although he originally didn't want to leave so early, there was no other way at the moment. Then Qian said no more, and the entire consciousness space was wrapped in golden light. 3 minutes. The dried soul power in his body was restored again, but Lingtian's face became increasingly pale. Although the quarter-hour time limit has not yet reached, every time the soul power is replenished, Lingtian has to endure the impact. If his physique had not been improved by the creation pill, Lingtian would have been unable to support it. Gritting his teeth. Lingtian looked at the bloody palm point. If you want to withstand a blow from a titled Douluo, Soul Saint's strength is far from enough. Ice God mode. Start again. With a thought in his mind, a flash of golden light suddenly flashed through his ice blue eyes. An exquisite robe made of ice crystals automatically appeared on Lingtian's body, and at the same time, a small blue sword emblem appeared on his forehead point. Because I was escaping before, I didn't use Ice God mode point. Now we are buying time, and of course we must use all means to improve our strength point in an instant. Lingtian's momentum surged again, and his soul power finally broke through the threshold of Soul Saint, and reached the level of Contra point. Although he is not yet a match for titled Douluo, he can still be restrained for a moment. Ice Blade. With a soft drink, the first ice blue soul ring behind him flashed. At the same time, Lingtian waved the Ice G sword and slashed several swords at the bloody hand in the air. Bang bang bang. Amidst the series of roars, the speed of the bloody hand did not slow down. That's it now. Seal up. A flash of light burst out from Lingtian's eyes, and the next moment the ice crystals remaining on the bloody hand suddenly condensed, freezing the bloody hand in place. Click, click. However, the good times did not last long, and soon the ice on the surface of the bloody hand began to crumble. However, Lingtian was not surprised by this. With a thought in his mind, the Ice G sword shot out of the air and pierced the palm of Kejuzhang's hand. For a moment, the blood-red giant palm continued to overflow with traces of sword light. Before all the ice was broken, the blood-red giant palm suddenly collapsed. Boom. After using this sword, Lingtian's face became even paler. Although this attack seemed to easily defeat the bloody hand, it was difficult to receive the titled Douluo's attack, and Lingtian also spent a full 50% of his soul power. You actually still have soul power. There was a hint of anger in Zishu's blood-red eyes. He had been beaten several times without being able to kill a soul sect. This was tantamount to provocation to him, and made him irritated. This time, he finally took it seriously. Your good luck ends here. As soon as he finished speaking, Zishu turned into a blood shadow and rose into the sky. At the same time, the 7th 10,000-year soul ring lit up. The 7th soul skill, the true form of the martial soul, the shadow of Wuhan appeared behind him, and Zishu's overall strength instantly increased sharply. And then a blood-red bat shrouded Lingtian. It's time to get serious. Sensing the improvement in Zishu's momentum, Lingtian held his breath and concentrated. With a thought, the mark of the ice god between the eyebrows flashed continuously, and then ice blue light gathered above the head, and a moment later a roaring dragon condensed and took shape. Frost Dragon. Lingtian masters one of the most powerful ice attribute soul skills. Ouch. After a powerful roar, the giant frost dragon rushed straight towards the blood shadow. Bang. The frost dragon opened its mouth and spat out an icy blue beam of light, and the bloody bat flapped its wings and released a blood glow. Bang bang bang. After the beam collided with the blood light, the dragon and the bat faced off head on. Amidst a series of collisions, the giant frost dragon was still very powerful, and even the martial spirit avatar suitable for a title Douluo did not lose at all. However, Lingtian, who was supported by his soul power, looked more and more haggard. In less than a minute, Lingtian's soul power has been exhausted twice, and the robe on his body has also dimmed a bit. Bang. Finally, Lingtian could no longer maintain the ice god mode. The mark of the ice god between his eyebrows dimmed again, and the robe on his body returned to its original state. The house leaked, and it rained all night. After the ice god mode ended, the soul power also returned to the soul saint. The frost dragon, whose soul power had decreased in increase, also showed signs of decline, and gradually became unable to withstand the attacks of the bloody bat's stab. The bloody bat suddenly dived, and one of the frost dragon's wings was torn off. Lingtian struggled to control the giant frost dragon to dodge, but the soul saint level soul power was still too weak, and the giant frost dragon was constantly dismembered by the bloody bats for a while. Ice chips continued to fall from the sky. Under the fierce attack of the bloody bats, Lingtian finally could no longer hold on. Ouch. The originally majestic frost dragon turned into a sky full of ice shards and fell from the sky after a whale called Lingtian slumped on the ground with a pale face, breathing heavily, obviously unable to fight anymore. From the water now. In less than a minute, Lingtian had already tried his best, and now he was exhausted and could not delay for another 2 minutes. Haha, die. Staring at Lingtian with his blood-red eyes, Zishu smiled ferociously and launched the final attack. The blood-colored bat's wings flapped, turning into a streak of blood and heading straight for Lingtian. Sorry, Lao Gu, I still didn't delay. Lingtian supported the ground with both hands, looked at the swooping bloody bats, and shook his head with a wry smile. After struggling for so long, I still couldn't escape. Don't say such depressing words. At this moment, Guzaioran suddenly said in a deep voice, just leave the remaining 2 minutes to me. Old Gu, don't worry, I will let you get out of here alive. Just when Guzaioran had made up his mind and was about to buy time for Lingtian's last stand, a sound similar to breaking glass suddenly came from behind, causing him to postpone his action. Click, click, break. Then a cold female voice sounded before Lingtian could recover. The bloody light in front of him was blocked by someone raising his hand, and then a thin figure appeared in front of him. A 9 soul rings suddenly appeared behind her. 2 yellows, 2 purples, and 5 blacks exuded a dazzling brilliance, indicating that she was also a titled Douluo. Chapter 156. Another titled Douluo? Please subscribe. Please vote. Chapter 157. The snake spear shows its power. Seeking the moon. Lao Gu, wait a moment. When Guzaioran saw this scene, he temporarily stopped his original plan. However, he still remained vigilant and would send Lingtian out as soon as he found something was wrong. Who? Zishu. You can't touch him, Usagi. Seeing this familiar figure, Zishu asked sternly, what are you doing? And why are you blocking my attack? You can't touch him. Mayota took a step forward, and a cold voice sounded at the same time. Getting rid of him is the palace master's order. Don't you want to disobey him? Disobedience. Mao Tu took off the identity token of Shadaan from his waist and threw it to the ground with a clang without any regrets. Now I'm not the one who killed Diane, so I don't have to listen to Zuzui's orders. Mao Tu, you are crazy. Zishu's expression changed drastically, and he looked at Mao Tu in disbelief. He couldn't figure out what was going on with Mao Tu. It's inappropriate to let the 12 zodiac signs of the Killing Palace go smoothly, but now he actually defected to the Killing Palace for a small soul sect. Just when Zishu was puzzled, he heard something that shocked him even more. In the morning light of the Snow Palace, I have met the Lord. Chen Z turned around and half knelt in front of Lingtian, clasped her hands and said respectfully, Snow Palace? You are from Snow Palace? Zishu was slightly startled and then looked at Chen Z in disbelief. He did not expect that among the 12 zodiac signs of Shadian, there would be people from Snow Palace hidden among them. Etc. Zishu suddenly narrowed his eyes. The person who can make Zudian, who has been lurking for decades, go undercover and protect him, even if his identity is exposed. He is also the person who Zijin, the master of the Killing Palace, names to be eliminated. What secrets does he have? But out of curiosity, he still had to get rid of Lingtian. In the Killing Palace, Zuzu's orders are from heaven. If he fails to fulfill the orders given by the palace master, he will not get good fruits, even if he is a rat in the Chinese zodiac. Looking at the 2 people who were talking, Zishu's eyes flashed with sparkle. The bloody soul power continued to condense in the palm of his hand. At this time, Lingtian also looked puzzled. Snow Palace, your majesty, what is the meaning between the two? Chen Zi saw Lingtian's doubts, and she opened her lips slightly and explained softly, we are both from Lingxia Palace, but I belong to Snow Palace, and he belongs to Killing Palace. He knows about Lingxia Palace. But what are the Snow Palace and the Killing Palace? Lingtian was full of doubts, but he had no way of opening his mouth. My subordinates know that the Lord must have many questions in his heart, but right now this is the territory of the Killing Palace, and there is no time to explain it clearly to you. Chen Z paused for a moment and said apologetically, I'll stay here to hold Zishu away. You should leave here as soon as possible. Don't go to the Killing City. That's their base camp for killing the palace. This is the token of our Snow Palace. If you want to know the reason for this, go to the cracks in the Snow Valley in the far north. Someone will explain it to you when you get there. Immediately afterwards, Chen Zi took out a shiny white token and handed it into Lingtian's hand. The far north, the crack in the Snow Valley. Lingtian was stunned for a moment. This place was somewhat familiar, but he couldn't remember it for a while. Point bang. At this moment, a bloody light suddenly struck from the right side. Bolt, Chen. Z raised her eyebrows and gave a soft drink. The center of her eyebrows flashed, and a burst of blue light shot out, instantly crushing the blood light released by Zishu for a sneak attack. Mayo 2, you asked for this, Zishu snorted coldly, and the third purple soul ring suddenly flashed. The third soul skill, heavy blood shadow. Point the next moment, the bloody bat turned into a monstrous blood shadow, crushing towards Lingtian and Chengxi. Lord, please get out of here quickly. As soon as he finished speaking, a clear phoenix cry suddenly sounded. Point the third soul skill, frozen wings. The huge phoenix wings spread out behind the morning light, and the third soul skill, frozen wings, was released. Point with the increase in frozen wings spread, the morning light surged in momentum, and the biting ice wind carried countless ice crystals, overwhelmingly covering the Z-Mouse's position. Point watching the fight between the two, Lingtian no longer hesitated, and left here quickly. After all, with his current strength, the greatest help to Chen Zi was to stay as far away from here as possible. Point as for other issues, let's wait until he survives. The only goal now is to get out of here. How long will it take, Leo Gu? I wasted a little time just now, and I still need a minute to prepare again. 1 more minute. Lingtian nodded and continued to move forward. Point he knew very well that in his current state, he wouldn't be able to run very far, even if there were no pursuers behind him, so he still had to rely on Guzioran to get out of here. Point now he has only one purpose, to stay as far away from the killing city as possible. Point, although he is now full of doubts about Chen Zi's identity, since she saved him, this situation can only be solved once. Point at the same time, two rays of light, red and blue, collided in the sky. Point boom, or thunderous collision sound suddenly sounded. Point as the explosion sounded. Point where the two energies collide, layers of soul power aftermath are like sound waves, spreading fiercely in all directions. The dense clouds that filled the sky, as the soul power swayed, bursts of surging soul power penetrated the thick clouds, creating layer after layer of transparent ripples between the sky and the earth, like the sound of a bell. Point however, Lingtian did not pay attention to this battle. Point his speed was very slow at the moment, but he still gritted his teeth and moved forward. Point originally, he planned to enter the killing city to avoid pursuit, but now because of the warning of the morning light, he is moving in a direction away from here. Lingtian. At this moment, a hoarse voice filled with surprise sounded above his head. Who? Lingtian frowned slightly, raised his head with a vigilant expression, and found that the person here was the familiar Shilong. Senior, why are you here? Young master asked me to stay outside the killing city. Long explained a few words to Lingtian, and then praised him. I didn't expect you to actually come out of the killing city. Not bad, just now he felt the waves of strong men fighting here, and he couldn't hold back his curiosity, and came to find out. Point unexpectedly, he saw Lingtian's figure as soon as he took 2 steps. Senior, let's leave here first. Before Shilong could finish speaking, Lingtian said eagerly, Long frowned slightly, and although he didn't understand what it meant, he still grabbed Lingtian's shoulder with one hand and led him away from here. Point whoosh, looking at the carnage capital that was getting further and further away behind him, Lingtian finally breathed a sigh of relief at this moment. Leo Gu, it's safe. Although Guzioran has completed his savings at this moment, he probably won't be able to use it in the current situation. Point but this is actually good. He doesn't want to leave so early. Looking at the aftermath of the battle behind him, Lingtian began to think about the reason for this sudden assassination. Lingxia Palace, Snow Palace, Killing Palace. Point what is the connection between all this? Rat, Rabbit, Dawn, and the 12 zodiac signs? What is the relationship between all these? At the same time, Lingxia Palace in the Bloody Abyss. The people in Snow Palace are interesting. Zhu, who had just successfully perfected his domain, felt something in his heart. His blood-red eyes were reflecting on the battle outside the killing city. A playful smile appeared on the corner of his mouth, and he immediately turned to the direction of Lingtian and Shilong. Now that you're here, stay here. As Soon as he finished speaking, Zhu Yi narrowed his eyes slightly, and at the same time, summoned a blood-red spear in his hand. The rich soul power continued to gather in the body of the gun, and then he suddenly exerted force, and threw the bloody spear in his hand towards Lingtian's position. Boom. The spear exploded, and the huge force caused the space to vibrate. After doing all this, Zhu Yi quietly picked up the wine glass and drank the scalded wine like blood in one gulp. At the same time, outside the killing city. Lingtian was still thinking about the reason. Why did Lingxue Palace want to assassinate him? The far north, the cracks in the snow valley, Lingtian murmured in a low voice. He felt that he should go to the far north. Maybe the answer he wanted was here. Swish. Suddenly, the sound of tearing the air suddenly came from behind. Not but Shi Long, who sensed this, suddenly turned around and saw a burst of blood. Seeing the distance that the blood shadow kept getting closer, and knowing that he could not dodge due to the speed, he immediately landed on the ground to protect Lingtian behind him, and at the same time, summoned his martial soul to prepare to block the blow with himself. Martial spirit. Now, a huge black snake spear emerged, filled with a sharp and terrifying aura. Shi Long gently stretched out his hand to grab it, and the black snake spear was caught in his hand. Immediately afterwards, the shadow carried a black snake spear nearly 10 meters long. Shi Long, titled Snake Spear, because his martial spirit is very special, he can transform into a snake spear or a two-headed snake. At this moment, he held the snake spear in his hand and stood ready. Senior, don't worry, just leave it to me. Although he felt strong killing intent from the bloody light, Shi Long still had the confidence to take the blow with his own titled Douluo strength. Shi Long turned the snake spear in his hand and stared at the blood shadow with his eyes. Boom. The speed of the blood light was getting faster and faster, and it was not until he was in front of him that he realized that what was in the blood light was actually a long gun, and the gun exuded a fierce murderous intent, sweeping towards the two of them like a tide. Stop, Shi Long shouted loudly and swung the snake spear towards the blood gun. But the sound of breaking wind sounded. The black snake spear slashed through the void, almost creating a series of sonic booms. The air of everyone, wherever the snake spear passed, was scrambling to separate to both sides. The sharp spear tip shimmered with a cold light. The blood-red spear tip pierced the space with murderous intent. The next moment, the snake spear and the blood spear collided. Clang. The crisp sound of fine iron chiming together makes a crisp sound where the two collide. In the stalemate, the blood-red lines on the gun body suddenly emitted a terrifying red light, and then flowed like blood on the gun body, instantly improving Shi Long and forcing Shi Long to retreat several steps. The sudden increase in power of the blood gun made Shi Long feel a little surprised in his heart. But right after that, there was anger. It's obviously a spear that no one is controlling, but it can actually knock back the snake spear in my hand. He is a level 92 titled Douluo. Chapter 158. Seriously injured. At stake. Why? Snake Spear. Douluo suddenly felt a surge of anger in his heart. His soul power began to circulate violently again, and the strength of the snake spear in his hand became even stronger. Peng. With a muffled sound, the bloody spear and the black snake spear collided violently in an instant. In the center of the collision between the two people, a terrifying aftermath was like ripples, centering on the two people and spreading out to all directions, accompanied by a fierce wind. Fortunately, Ling was standing behind Shi Long and was not affected by the collision. Zukan paused and retreated into the air. Seeing this scene, Shi Long nodded with satisfaction. This is right. How could a spear that no one controlled could be his opponent? Ha! Immediately, he shouted loudly, and at the same time, the third soul ring on his body flashed a purple light. The third soul skill. Dance of the Snake Spear. With the activation of the third soul skill, the original bluish black light on the snake spear was completely covered, replaced by a dark energy band, which transformed into a two-headed giant snake, and launched a final blow towards the blood spear. But just when they were about to collide, the blood gun suddenly disappeared out of thin air. Shi Long's third soul skill failed. What about the blood gun? The energy that did not hit the target dissipated, and turned into a snake spear again, and returned to the hand. Could it be that the energy could not be sustained and dissipated? Just when Shi Long was confused, a sudden murderous intention came from behind him. Not but Shi Long suddenly realized something was wrong. When he hurriedly pretended to be calm, the bloody spear had already arrived in front of Lingtian, and at this moment, Lingtian did not expect it. The spear was obviously blocked by Shilong just now, but it suddenly appeared in front of him the next second. However, he was quickly shocked. Seeing the blood gun that was already close at hand, Lingtian could only stop it by himself. Coming, soul. Bone skill, extremely cold ice armor. In an instant, blue light flickered on Lingtian's body. A pair of frost armor covered him in front of him. At the same time, the Ice G sword was also held in his hand, and the Ice G domain also unfolded. Bang. The blood gun collided with the ice sword. However, at the moment of the fight, the powerful force caused the Bing G sword to escape from his hand, and Lingtian flew backwards. Not good. Lingtian just wanted to change back to the Ice G sword, but the blood-colored spear was already in front of him. Phew. The extremely cold ice armor in front of him shattered instantly, and the spear pierced Lingtian's chest. Wow. Lingtian spat out a mouthful of blood, his eyes dim and unfocused. Immediately afterwards, blood flowed backwards along the spear, and Lingtian's face turned pale to the naked eye. All this happened in an instant. Lingtian, although Shilong desperately wanted to return to protect Lingtian, he was still a moment slower than the speed of the bloody spear. He could only watch as a bloody spear pierced Lingtian. The soul power contained in the spear surged in instantly, destroying his body wantonly. Are you going to die? All this happened too fast. At this moment, the severe pain made Lingtian almost faint. He opened his eyes with difficulty and looked at the bloody spear stuck in his chest. A hint of unwillingness flashed in his distracted eyes. Is it over? Lingtian felt dizzy and his eyelids became heavier and heavier on his teeth. Lingtian murmured in a low voice, Lao Gu, I'm sorry. In a daze, the second before he passed out, he seemed to hear Gu Zioran's voice, as long as I'm here, nothing will happen to you. At this moment, a golden light suddenly burst out from the body. Lingtian, the next journey depends on you alone. As soon as he finished speaking, the golden light completely enveloped him. The light became brighter and brighter, and became a bit dazzling. At the same time, a figure of a blonde man appeared vaguely behind him. I wanted to accompany you for one more journey. He shook his head and sighed deeply before his figure shattered into pieces and fell into Lingtian's body. At the same time, he squeezed out the blood-colored spear from his chest. Boom. The next moment, the light suddenly bloomed. It instantly lit up the entire sky like daylight. Under the golden light, Shilong also subconsciously covered his eyes. When he opened his eyes again, Lingtian was no longer there. Tick tock, tick tock. Only one spear was left on the spot, still dripping blood. The blood was exactly the same as when it pierced Lingtian's chest just now. The blood he sucked in was now slowly flowing down the gun barrel. Blood was particularly dazzling in Shilong's eyes. Lingtian, seeing the blood gun remaining on the ground, Shilong was filled with anger. Seeing this scene before him, he subconsciously thought that Lingtian had been killed, and the golden light that suddenly appeared just now was also caused by this blood gun. Actually killed Lingtian under his nose. Just when Shilong swung the snake spear to hit the spear, it turned into a streak of blood and disappeared into the sky. Damn it, don't let me find you. Shilong, who had no way to vent, could only hit the ground hard with one blow. After a while, Shilong's eyes regained clarity. He failed to protect Lingtian, and this cannot be changed. Now he needs to give Qian Renxue an explanation. At least he must find out who is attacking Lingtian. Thinking of this, Shilong narrowed his eyes and looked forward. At this moment, there was another loud noise in my ears, and faintly visible figures of blood and blue flickered. The two were still fighting fiercely. With a flash of his body, he rushed towards the fighting position not far away. He had a hunch that he should be able to get some clues there. Star Forest, deep in the lake of life in the bright purple space. Gu Yuna closed her eyes. Her body of 100 feet was lying on the high platform. Green crystals of life were placed around her, and the rich life energy poured into her body to restore her injuries. However, she was too seriously injured, and these energies could only prevent the injury from getting worse. Bang. Suddenly, there was a muffled sound, and then a ball of golden light appeared in front of him. Who? Gu Yuna opened her eyes immediately, stood up suddenly, and kept waving her wings behind her. Her lavender eyes looked at the sudden light group with vigilance, and at the same time there was a somewhat doubtful look in her eyes. This breath felt familiar to her. Silver. Dragon King, it's me. At this moment, Guzaoran's figure slowly condensed, but the golden light was much dimmer than before. Golden. Dragon King. Gu. Yuna's eyes returned to calmness and she asked in a deep voice, aren't you with the ice god? He's here. Gu. Zioran waved his hand, and the golden light slowly dissipated. At this moment, Lingtian's eyes were tightly closed, and his face was pale. There was a blood hole the size of a fist on his chest. Bright red blood was constantly pouring out of it, and the vitality in his body was passing by every second. Although the bloody spear was forced out by Guzaoran, the injury left behind could not be recovered. The remaining killing intent drained his vitality. What happened? Chapter 159 Martial Soul, Gu Xiaoran and -039, S decision. There was an accident, and you are the only one who can save him, Gu. Zioran said in a deep voice. He had not originally planned to bring Lingtian to the Stardao Forest. But plans can't keep up with changes. Lingtian was seriously injured by the blood gun, and his divine power could not restore the injury. If he wanted to restore the injury, he immediately thought of the Crystal of Life, so he could only bring Lingtian to Gu Yuna. I see. After Gu Yuna heard this, she directly grabbed the Crystals of Life and threw them to Guzaoran. She has a lot of Crystals of Life here. Thank you. After thanking him, Guzaoran placed the Crystal of Life on Lingtian's chest. Wisps of light green energy poured into the body, and the blood hole in the chest sprouted and slowly healed. At the same time, the residual murderous intention in the body was also eliminated by the power of life. At this time, the injuries on Lingtian's body have basically recovered, and the blood hole in his chest will soon heal. His face was not as pale and bloodless as before, but turned slightly pale with a hint of ruddy color. His weak breathing, which was vague before, was finally steady now. He was lying here. His breathing was steady and his pulse was long. And the power of the Crystal of Life seeped into his body all the time. As the power of the Crystal of Life penetrated into his body, the color of the emerald green crystal became lighter and lighter. Finally, after about half an hour there was a snap. The power of the Crystal of Life has directly dissipated. Guzaoran, who was already prepared, immediately took out the next Crystal of Life and placed it on his chest as before. However, Lingtian's injury has stabilized this time, and he does not need to be there to help absorb it. Seeing this scene, Guzaoran finally breathed a sigh of relief. The injury has finally been stabilized. As long as the second crystal is absorbed, Lingtian should be able to recover as before. Suddenly, Gu Yuna noticed something and narrowed her eyes. Golden. Dragon King, what's going on? She noticed that the golden light on Guzaoran's body was getting darker and darker, just like the remaining candlelight in the wind was getting weaker and weaker, and might be extinguished at any time. I'm going to disappear, Guzaoran said calmly. Disappear? Gu Yuna was stunned for a moment, then her face changed slightly, and she asked in a deep voice, did you integrate all the remaining power into his body? Yeah. Guzaoran nodded. You have to think clearly, Gu Yuna reminded. In this way, this part of your true spirit will completely lose its integration with the ice god, and you will never be able to separate from him in the future. Nothing to think about, Gu. Zioran smiled indifferently and said calmly, when I left the true spirit, this was my original plan. Now it's just a period of advance, just relying on the ice god's deity. No matter how powerful Lingtian is, he cannot be the opponent of Shura God. But if you add the potential of the Golden Dragon King, then Lingtian has the possibility of becoming the God King. This is Guzaoran's plan. He hopes to use his own power to help Lingtian reach the level of a God King. With a sigh, Gu Yuna shook her head. What the Golden Dragon King did was extremely irrational in her opinion. If it were her, she would never place all her bets on a human being. Silver Dragon King, I have a favor to ask of you. At this moment, Guzaoran suddenly said, what happened? If he is in crisis, I hope you can help take care of him. You don't have to worry about that. Gu Yuna nodded slightly and said calmly, since he has your origin, he is considered a member of our dragon clan, and I will protect him as much as possible. It's just that how much I can help depends on his potential. Lingtian has endless potential. Although he is just a soul sect now, I have always believed that the future of soul beasts lies with him. Gu Xiaoran said with full confidence in Lingtian. Gu Yuna half closed her eyes and said slowly, if this is really the case, then your original proposal is not impossible to try. He won't let you down. I believe in him. Gu Xiaoran smiled indifferently and turned into a golden dragon wrapped in golden light. Finally, he looked back. Looking at the unconscious Lingtian with his huge eyes, there was a trace of reluctance in his eyes, and he murmured in a low voice, from now on, I will leave everything to you. Ouch. With a loud dragon roar, Gu Xiaoran escaped into his body. In an instant, the shining golden light enveloped Lingtian's body, and at the same time, the shadow of a golden dragon vaguely appeared behind him. After a long time. The golden light gradually dissipated, revealing Lingtian's figure again. At this moment, the ice god mark between his eyebrows flickered, and a golden line appeared on the original ice blue mark. At the same time, because of the Golden Dragon King's martial spirit, his physical strength began to increase again. A powerful physical aura continued to spread outward from Lingtian. At the same place, Gu Xiaoran's figure had completely disappeared. In the space, only the loud roar of the dragon echoed, proving the traces of his past existence. Alas, looking at the unconscious Lingtian, Gu Yuna sighed deeply. Until now, she still couldn't understand why the Golden Dragon King tried his best to help a human being even at the expense of his own consciousness. Even though he was once a soul beast, he is now a real human being. Is Lingtian really their hope? Why does the Golden Dragon King trust him so much? Gu Yuna, who has never experienced human emotions, cannot understand the friendship between Lingtian and Gu Xiaoran. After a moment of silence, Gu Yuna's voice sounded again. Dishan. As soon as he finished speaking, Dishan's figure appeared and knelt on one knee. My lord, what is this? He looked at the unconscious Lingtian aside, a look of doubt flashing in his eyes. The Golden Dragon King had an accident and sent him to me. Gu Yuna pointed at Lingtian lying on the ground and said calmly, I will leave the ice god to you. His injuries are almost healed. When he wakes up, bring him to see me. Yes. Dishan nodded respectfully and then disappeared from this space with Lingtian. Star Forest, center of Lake of Life. This is the place where Dishan lives, but at this moment, there is a green-haired woman sitting by the lake, looking at the calm bottom of the lake and waiting quietly. His figure flashed and a black figure appeared in midair. Dishan. BG came forward and her gentle voice came slowly. Bridget's body is an emerald swan that is more than 500,000 years old. It is a healing soul beast with a kind heart. It is a very unique existence among the ferocious beasts. It is said that he is Dishan's lover and has a high status among the soul beasts. Bridget, you came just in time. Dishan was overjoyed. He originally wanted to find BG again, but now he no longer needed to make another trip. Chapter 160 Uneasy Qian Renxue. The beginning of the month. He is the ice god from last time. BG looked at Lingtian and asked with some hesitation. Dishan nodded slightly, placed Lingtian on the ground, and said softly, the Lord asked me to bring him here for treatment. You are the only one among us who has this ability. Leave it to me. BG quickly understood what Dishan meant and reached out to take Lingtian. The emerald green light gathered in her palm and slowly entered his body. After a while, the light dissipated. When will he wake up? Dishan asked. Although the Lord used the crystal of life to treat him in time, the injuries he suffered were too serious, and it will take at least a week for him to wake up. Bridget said softly, let him recuperate here. He may wake up faster with the nourishment of life energy. Dishan nodded and immediately placed Lingtian in the wooden house aside. Time passes day by day. Qian Dou Empire Palace. All the civil and military officials of the court had arrived, standing in their seats with their heads lowered and not saying a word. The court hall was extremely quiet today, as if waiting for the arrival of an important person. Qian Renxue, who was originally responsible for supervising the country, was standing quietly on the right side of the hall, instead of standing in the center and presiding over the court as usual. Because today, after more than half a year of cultivation, Emperor Zuyi finally returned to the court, where he had been away for a long time. Your Majesty is here. I Don't know how long it had passed before the eunuch's shrill voice came from the door of the palace. Long live your majesty. Long live your majesty. Everyone, please excuse me and stay on your own terms. Not seen for a while. Emperor Zui, who had been recuperating on the sickbed for more than half a year, now looked even more sluggish and his eyes were cloudy, as if he was going to die at any time. Zui glanced at the ministers in the hall, took a deep look at Qian Renxue, and said slowly, I haven't seen you for many days, and I see that there are quite a few unfamiliar faces among you. Report to Father. Qian Renxue took a step forward and said, all officials in the 6 ministries are on normal schedule, and not long ago, I also handed my father a letter. King did a good job. I also feel that the court is desolate, and now that these young people have replaced it, the court has become a bit more energetic. I am already old, and the future of the empire still lies in the hands of young people like you. Zhu Yi nodded slightly and said, my father is at his peak in the spring and autumn period, and will surely live a long life. King still has a lot to learn. Qian Renxue said humbly. Ha ha ha. Zhu Yi chuckled and shook his head. A look of regret flashed in his eyes. I am going to court today to tell you something. King is the crown prince of the Qian Dou Empire and my only future heir. After a moment of pause, Zhu Yi's eyebrows were solemn, and his cold eyes slowly swept over each one. The hall suddenly fell silent. No one spoke. I will let go of the past, but from today on, if anyone still doesn't give up, don't blame me for not thinking about the old relationship. In the end, Zhu Yi's eyes rested on several ministers. They all have a common identity, supporters of Prince Snowstar. Even after Qian Renxue came to power, they still unswervingly support Prince Snowstar. He has been causing trouble for Qian Renxue in the court. In the past, they were ignored to train the prince, but now that Qian Renxue has gained his approval, these people are no longer needed to test Qian Renxue's coping ability. That's why Zhu Yi warned them today. He wasn't kidding. If they do it again, Zhu Yi will never tolerate it. There can only be one voice for the future of the Qian Dou Empire, and he will never tolerate anyone who affects the integrity of the empire. My lord, I obey the order. Those ministers also felt Zhu Yi's gaze, and quickly bowed, and saluted to express their attitude. Seeing this scene, Zhu Yi nodded with satisfaction, turned his head and shouted softly, King, my son is here. Qian Renxue took a step forward, and responded with her hands in hand, come to me, father. The Principality of Berek is suffering from a locust plague. Let me see what you can do. My son, I obey your orders. Qian Renxue pondered slightly, her eyes gleaming. Immediately, he strode to Zhu Yi's side, and handled the government affairs in the court as usual. Li Cheng, the locust plague in the Principality of Berek will be dealt with according to your method. Remember to do it quickly and not to cause any disturbance among the people. Old Minister, I obey the order. Wang Shilling, I leave the matter of escorting the food and fodder to you. I accept your order. Li Shangshu. After spending more than half a year in the court, Qian Renxue had already gathered an aura unique to an emperor as orders were conveyed in an orderly manner. Qian Renxue quickly arranged and handled the locust plague problem in the Principality of Berek. Looking at Qian Renxue, who was scolding Fang Qiu next to him, a hint of relief flashed in Zhu Yi's cloudy eyes. Prince, you are very proud. The political methods are clever and mature. He lived up to my expectations of him. He cleverly used the opportunity to clean up a group of ministers who were loyal to Zuxing, and also arranged the people under his command very reasonably. When faced with emergencies, he remains calm, and can quickly designate a series of solutions. You need to be able and capable, and you need to be smart and skillful. Zhu Yi is very satisfied with Qian Renxue. At this moment, he became more determined to pass the throne to Qian Renxue. Retreat. The morning court ended after a while, and only Qian Renxue and Zhu Yi were left in the court hall. Father, how do you view your son? Good. Zhu Yi patted Qian Renxue on the shoulder and said, from now on, I will continue to leave matters in the court to you, and I can also have a good rest for a while. After saying that, Zhu Yi left the hall with satisfaction. My dearest son, I would like to send you my royal father's greetings. Qian Renxue said respectfully with the corner of her mouth slightly raised. She passed the test of the snowy night. This court trial made Zhuyi recognize her ability. And his position as prince is completely stable. He went to court today to help him establish his authority and clearly tell everyone in the court that Qian Renxue was the next emperor of the Tian Dou Empire appointed by him on the snowy night. It's going to be successful soon. Qian Renxue looked down at the entire palace with a faint smile on her lips. She looked at her open palms as if she held the entire Tian Dou city in her hands. The Tian Dou Empire is already under control. Now as long as Zhuyi dies, the Dou Empire will be in the bag. Then even that woman will have no reason to interfere with her feelings. There will no longer be any obstacles between her and Lingtian. Zhuyi, thinking of this, Qian Renxue smiled brightly. Just as she was about to return to the prince's mansion, her heart suddenly tightened, and a wave of uneasiness emerged. Chapter 161 Zhuyi, will you come back? Qiu. This is Qian. Renxue covered her chest and frowned slightly. It seemed like something bad was happening, making her uneasy. She looking at the flashing red communication soul guide. Qian Renxue's eyes flashed with worry, but she quickly calmed down and left the palace in a hurry. Your Highness, go back home as fast as possible. Qian Renxue jumped up with a hint of impatience in her cold tone. Promise. Zhu Ling heard Qian Renxue's eagerness and quickly drove back to the prince's mansion. A moment later, the prince's mansion. As soon as Qian Renxue returned home, she immediately returned to the study, opened the secret door and quickly entered the dark room. Dong dong dong. There was a sound of rapid footsteps at this moment. In the dark room, Snakespear Douluo was standing here waiting. Subordinate, I have met the young master. Hearing the footsteps behind him, she bowed and said respectfully, Mr. Shi, why are you back? Qian Renxue stared at Shilong with sharp eyes and said, didn't I ask you to wait for Zhuyi to come out in the slaughter city? Master Lingtian, he came out of the killing city. Out. Qian Renxue was stunned for a moment, then a smile instantly bloomed on her face, and she said with a chuckle, I knew he would definitely come out. Where is Zhuyi now? Is he in the mansion? Take me quickly. No need, I will go see him now. Master Lingtian hasn't come back yet. Didn't I come back with you? A flash of disappointment flashed in Qian Renxue's eyes, but she quickly said with a warm smile, it's okay. Where is he now? I'll pick him up myself. At this moment, she didn't notice anything was wrong. He just thought that due to identity issues, Shilong would not be able to return to the prince's mansion with Lingtian, so he came back first to report the news of Zhuyi's return to him. Long was silent for a long time, lowered his head, and said slowly, he can't come back. The smile on Qian Renxue's face gradually disappeared, and she asked with a slight trembling, what do you mean you can't come back? 3 days ago, Master Lingtian walked out of the slaughter city. He seemed to have encountered some kind of crisis. When he was escaping, he happened to meet me. Just when we were about to leave the slaughter city, we were suddenly attacked by a titled Douluo. After several teachings, I discovered that that person's goal was Lingtian. Shilong said slowly, then, what? How is Zhuyi doing now? Qian Renxue's heart tightened. She clenched her hands tightly in front of her chest and looked at Shilong in panic. That man is very strong. A hint of fear flashed in Shilong's eyes, and he said in a deep voice, I haven't even seen his true face. He just threw a blood gun and was able to compete with me. At first, I blocked his front. Attacked twice, but failed to block his last shot. Lingtian was pierced by a shot. He died on the spot. No bones were left. Shilong slowly lowered his head. With a look of unbearability in his eyes, he knew the young master's feelings for the child. Lingtian's death must be a bolt from the blue for Qian Renxue, which is difficult to accept. Boom. These words were like thunder on the ground, exploding in Qian Renxue's ears, making her stunned for a moment, looking restless and unable to control herself. Zhuyi, dead, pierced with one shot. He died on the spot, with no bones left. These 3 words were like sharp arrows, piercing deeply into Qian Renxue's heart. Zhuyi, a line of clear tears slowly fell from the corner of his eyes. Also, this is Lingtian's only relic, as he spoke. Shilong took out a piece of rag stained red with blood from the storage soul guide. This is what Shilong finally discovered while cleaning the battlefield. At that time, he was nailed to the ground by the bloody spear. When the bloody spear disappeared, he discovered the rag and put it away. Qian Renxue stretched out her trembling hands and took the bright red rag. This is Ocean's only relic. After a long silence, who is it? Qian Renxue slowly raised her head, her cold eyes filled with murderous intent. Lingtian Palace. They were the ones who did this to young Master Lingtian. She Long paused for a moment, clasped his hands and said, after I and the woman jointly fought off another titled Douluo, she told me that Lingtian Palace was attacking Lingtian. Why did they attack Ocean? Qian Renxue asked with a frown. This subordinate doesn't know. After we jointly repelled the titled Douluo, she was obviously in a bad state after learning that Lingtian was dead. After reminding me to leave here quickly, she stopped talking and turned around. Leave. She Long raised his head and looked at Qian Renxue and said slowly, but judging from the conversation between her and the repelled titled Douluo, it seems that the assassination of Lingtian was ordered by some palace master, so I think that the bloody spear was probably thrown by the palace master. Bang. There was a muffled sound and it hit the table hard. Lingtian Palace. Qian Renxue gritted her teeth and squeezed out these 3 words. What a Lingtian Palace. Qian Renxue vowed to overthrow Lingtian Palace and make them pay the price. At this moment, her expression was cold, her eyes were full of murderous intent, and she was holding the rag tightly in her hand, with her fingertips deeply embedded in her palm. Young Master, seeing Qian Renxue's condition, Shilong was filled with worry. But just when he was about to open his mouth to persuade, he was interrupted by Qian Renxue's next words. Old. She spread the news that Lingtian Palace is hiding in the killing city, especially those forces that have been assassinated by Lingtian Palace's killers. Qian Renxue's eyes were cold, and she said slowly, my subordinate understands. Go down, leave me alone for a while. After saying that, Qian Renxue sighed, sat on the chair, and lowered her head, her eyes filled with pain, turned her back, and waved her hand at Shilong. Subordinate, please retire. After sighing and taking a deep look, Shilong bowed his hands and disappeared from the dark room. He understood that what Qian Renxue needed most now was silence. Click, click, drops of tears fell on the ground. Don't you have something else to say to me? Didn't you say you wanted to help me become emperor? Didn't you promise to come back safely? Don't you still want to see my true appearance? Ocean, would you please come back? I don't want anything, as long as you come back safely. Holding the Fire Phoenix jade pendant in both hands, memories of the scenes she had spent with Lingtian appeared in Qian Renxue's mind, and 2 lines of uncontrollable tears fell down her cheeks. I want you to come back safely. I just want you to come back safely. 2 days later, the news of Lingtian's death quickly spread to the Qibao glazed sect. That day, Sword Douluo was furious. On that day, the Qibao glazed sect came out in full force, and all the forces in the Qian Dou Empire, big or small, as long as they were in the Lingtian Palace, were uprooted. That day, everyone faced the title Douluo's anger for the first time. Chapter 162. Ocean, am I beautiful? Asking the moon. At this moment, Qian Dou Cemetery. A funeral is being held. Although there were not many guests attending the funeral, they were all among the top figures in the Qian Dou Empire. The leader of Qibao glazed sect, Ning Fengxi. Elder of Qibao glazed sect, Chen Zin. Elder of Qibao glazed sect, Gu Rang. The crown prince of the Qian Dou Empire, Qian Renxue. 3 teachers from Qian Dou Royal Academy, Meng Shenji, Bei Ocean, and Zilin. And the person paying tribute at this funeral was none other than Lingtian. Since there was no Lingtian corpse, Qian Renxue erected a tomb. Soon, the funeral was over. Well, Meng, Shenji and the other 3 looked at each other, sighed, felt sorry for Lingtian's death, and then slowly left the cemetery. King Ocean's affairs will be left to my master. Ning Fengxi walked up to Qian Renxue, the killing intent in his eyes flashed away, and said in a deep voice, Uncle Jian will definitely make Lingtian Palace pay the price. Lingtian is his valued son-in-law and the future of the Qibao glazed sect. Now he was assassinated by a killer organization. This time he really made Ning Fengzi angry. He vowed to make Lingtian Palace pay the price. A person who always has a kind face on weekdays would be the most cruel. If he really takes action. The bloody turmoil in the Qian Dou Empire in the past few days was not only caused by Sword Douluo, but Ning Fengzi was also behind it. I will give my apprentice an explanation, Chen Zin said in a cold tone, without any attempt to hide his murderous intent. Lingtian is his most valued disciple. Even if Ning Fengzi disagrees, he will avenge his disciple. You boy, go. Rang shook his head, sighed and said nothing more. In the end, the three of them stayed for a while and left the cemetery. They will continue to clear out the Lingtian Palace in the Qian Dou Empire to avenge Lingtian. Xiaoshan, Qian Renxue was alone in front of the cemetery, stayed there for almost half an hour, and then left silently. After a while. After everyone left, a girl walked up to Ling Xianmu. She has skin as good as snow, a straight nose bridge, slightly slender eyes, and a stunning face with a bit of majesty. There is a lingering sadness in her golden eyes. She is wearing a golden palace dress. The skirt and long skirt are one piece, and seem to be woven with gold thread. They don't have too many patterns, and are simple and elegant in style. The golden stand-up collar protected her snow white and slender neck, and her long golden hair was scattered casually behind her without combing it carefully. It formed a sharp contrast with her neat palace attire. The person who came was none other than Qian Renxue. It's just that she is not using the identity of Zuking now, but her true appearance. She walked slowly to Lingtian's tombstone and whispered, Xiaoshan, do I look good like this? Unfortunately, no one responded. Qian Renxue fulfilled the promise she made to Lingtian. She changed back to her peerless appearance and put on a golden dress. But when she put on a long dress, Xiaoshan had left her forever, even before I had time to express my feelings. If Qian Renxue is given another chance, she will definitely not be as hesitant as she is now. Unfortunately, there is no chance to do it again in life. Xiaoshan, I will definitely avenge you. Qian Renxue wiped away the tears from the corners of her eyes, clutched the jade pendant on her chest, and whispered her determination. Ever since she came back from Lingtian's cemetery that day, Qian Renxue seemed to have become a different person. Qian Renxue was no longer as gentle as before in the court, and began to use thunderous means to suppress the ministers of the Snow Star Party, gradually turning the entire court into her own hall. But Zhu Yi made no sound in response to this. His health is getting worse and worse, and even the most skilled doctors in the palace are helpless. He looked extremely ill. Therefore, Zhu Yi did not interfere with Qian Renxue's current behavior in the court and let her handle it as she pleased. The Qian Dou Empire was going to be handed over to her anyway. Shrek Academy. When Ning Rangrang learned the news of Lingtian's death, she burst into tears and asked Ningli to take her back to the sect. Although Zhu Zuking was not as fierce as Ning Rangrang, he worked extremely hard during training that day. He continued to fight in the big spirit fighting arena until he was exhausted and covered in bruises, but was carried back by Xiao Wu. Everyone's joys and sorrows are different. Some people are sad for Lingtian, and naturally some people are happy for it. When the news reached Shrek Academy, the most excited person was Dame Yu Bei. Although Lingtian had left Shrek Academy a long time ago, Dame Yu Bei's resentment towards Lingtian has not diminished at all. Especially now that Zhu Zuking has always had a cold attitude towards him, he feels even more resentful towards Lingtian in his heart. Die well, Mr. Day, who was full of interest that day, directly dragged Ma Hongjin to the most exclusive club in Soto City, spent a lot of money, and invited dozens of girls to play happily together. It wasn't until noon the next day that I returned to the college feeling refreshed. Time passed slowly, and another week passed in the blink of an eye. And when the power of the Qian Dou Empire changed, a big event also happened on the Douluo continent. A mysterious title Douluo wearing a dragon head mask challenges the sword fighter Luo Chengxin of the Seven Treasures Glazed Sect. A mysterious title Douluo wearing a tiger head mask challenges the Bone Douluo Gurang of the Kibeo Glazed Sect. A mysterious title Douluo wearing a bull-headed mask challenge the Blue Lightning Tyrant Dragon Sect to challenge the Thunder Douluo Yuansen Pointer. Mysterious titled Douluo wearing a rat-headed mask challenges Thunder Knife Douluo Li Yuan from the auction. How's point? A mysterious title. Douluo wearing a snake-head mask challenges Zhu Douluo Yuguan of the Wuhan Palace. Followed by some small sects on Douluo continent. During this period, a total of 5 title Douluo wearing animal masks appeared. They challenge the recognized veteran title Douluo experts on the Douluo continent, one after another. Although the specific victory or defeat was unclear, they made a name for themselves: Lingtian Palace. This is the message left by the 5 of them. They all came from Lingtian Palace. Lingtian Palace, which had been out of the mainland for 100 years, reappeared and appeared in the eyes of all sects in the most powerful way. For a time, everyone once again faced the power of Lingtian Palace. The city of killing, the bloody abyss. Inside the Lingtian Palace, subordinate, I have met the palace master. Shu knelt down on one knee and clasped his fists with both hands and bowed respectfully to Zhu, the master of the palace. Get up, Zhu. Yi sat in the main hall and then said calmly, how is the progress of the things assigned to you? The plan you gave us has been successfully completed. The strength displayed by the 5 title Douluo has brought Lingtian Palace back into the sight of all the major forces. It has made them aware of our powerful strength. It has also made some sects that were still in a wait-and-see state now. There is a hint that someone wants to take refuge with us. Shu bowed and clasped his fists, saying respectfully, if you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelos. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 163, Dark Tide Surging. Seeking the Moon. Very good, you can proceed to the next step. Zhu. Yi nodded slightly, with a satisfied smile on his lips. Reveal the news that we are participating in the competition, and then send the 3 tokens to Wuhan Palace, Star Luo Empire and Qian Dou Empire respectively. Palace Master, if they don't, Zishu said worriedly, they are all smart people and they make the right choices. They would definitely agree to the almost free benefit of exchanging the orange kill order for the qualification of a team that is sent to the finals. As for whether it will affect their championship, they don't care about this. Whether it is Wuhan Palace, Xingluo Empire or Qian Dou Empire, their teams are all formed by the best geniuses on the mainland, and they are not afraid of any challenge from any team, and can defeat Lingtian Palace. If they don't have this little bit of self-confidence, they don't have to compete. I understand, Zishu said respectfully. Zhu. Yi waved his hand and said, if you have nothing else to do, just go down first. Palace Master, Zishu suddenly called out to Zhu Wei, and at the same time a look of hatred flashed from Zishu's eyes. Palace Master, how should we deal with Mao Tu's betrayal? He is very vindictive. Had it not been for Mao Tu's rebellion, the Palace Master would not have been allowed to take action himself. Although the Palace Master did not blame himself this time, Zishu still held a grudge against Mao Tu in his heart, and now that he was seizing the opportunity, he would naturally add insult to injury. Take care of the matters entrusted to you first. I have my own plans for Mao Tu. Zhu Wei pondered for a moment, then looked at Z Mouse and said slowly, yes Z. Shu's face changed slightly, and a trace of unwillingness flashed in his eyes. My subordinates resign. However, he soon regained his composure. With the lesson learned last time, Zishu was not willing to interfere with Zhu Yi's decision, and finally bowed, and slowly exited the Lingtian Palace. What this palace wants is the entire Lingtian Palace. Just when Zishu was about to exit the hall, a faint voice suddenly came from behind. Just as the whole continent is turbulent, Lingtian Palace's plan is about to unfold around the continent's elite soul master competition. The core circle of the Stardao forest is still as peaceful as ever inside the cabinet lake of life. 5 days have passed since he was teleported by Gu Xiaoran, and Lingtian is still in a coma, and he doesn't know how long it will take to wake up. In the meantime, Beji also checked Lingtian several times, and the results were that everything was normal, but she was still in a coma. But it is certain that Lingtian is still alive. But now no one can tell for sure about Lingtian's condition, and they can only wait for him to wake up on his own. I don't know how long it took. The noisy dust turned into nothingness in an instant. After the darkness, the dawn bloomed in my heart. The blurred eyes gradually got rid of those unknown phantoms, slowly opened, and the sight fell back into the gentle morning light. Lingtian finally woke up slowly. The dazzling sunlight made him feel uncomfortable, so he subconsciously closed his eyes again, and then tried to slowly open them again. Then Lingtian finally opened his eyes. His half-asleep eyes were very hazy. He looked at the surrounding environment, then weakly raised his hands and rubbed his eyes. This time he finally woke up completely. Leo. Goo, where is this? Looking up at the unfamiliar surroundings, Lingtian subconsciously called out to Guzioran in his heart. However, the response to him was silence. Old Goo. Lingtian called out again in his heart, but still no one responded. What is this guy doing again? Is he disappearing? Lingtian shook his head helplessly, sat up from the bed, looked down at his chest, and found that the blood hole that had been pierced had now disappeared. Not only that, but I also feel full of strength, without any feeling of weakness, after being injured before. Is it because of the ancient times? It should be. He had no other explanation, except that he didn't know why this guy suddenly stopped talking. Otherwise, if he asked, he would know what happened when he was unconscious. Go directly to him, with or thought. Lingtian's consciousness entered the body. Just when he entered the body to look for Guzioran in person, he was surprised to find that the consciousness space that originally existed deep in the sea of consciousness suddenly disappeared without any trace. Consciousness space disappeared. Where did Leo Goo go? Lingtian felt his heart tightening, always feeling that something bad had happened. Just when he was about to search again, there was a sudden sound of unfamiliar footsteps outside the door. Tap tap tap. It's someone coming. Hearing the footsteps getting closer and closer, Lingtian first put down his search for Guzioran, gathered his mind and quietly summoned the Bingji sword, and looked at the door warily. He still doesn't know the situation here, so he must be careful in everything. Lingtian walked off the bed, holding the Bingji sword in his hand. Crunch. At this moment, a majestic man in black pushed open the door. His eyes were golden, exuding unspeakable majesty, and his long black hair also had a strand of golden hair. It was 10. The golden-eyed black dragon king, the head of the great ferocious beast, and the beast god Dishan. He's awake. A gentle voice sounded behind Dishan. It turned out that there was a woman following behind him, wearing a green smoked sweater, a pleated skirt with mist and green grass, and a thin veil of green water. Her shoulders were cut into a plain waist, and her skin was as blue as fat. The emerald-like hair is none other than Bridget, the emerald swan ranked 4th among the 10 most ferocious beasts. Dishan? Lingtian was slightly startled. A look of surprise flashed in his eyes. We meet again, ice god. Looking at Lingtian, who finally woke up, Dishan finally breathed a sigh of relief. Why am I here? Lingtian asked doubtfully. It was Lord Golden Dragon King who brought you here. I don't know about other things. Now that you have regained consciousness, come with me. The Lord wants to see you. Qian took 2 steps forward and said slowly, trouble. Lingtian happened to have a question to ask the Silver Dragon King, so he nodded and followed Dishan out. How many days have I been unconscious? 5 days. What about my injuries? Well, the Lord used the crystal of life to stabilize your injury. After a moment of silence, Dishan couldn't help but asked curiously, who are you hurt by before? I can't figure it out now. Lingtian smiled bitterly and shook his head. The 2 of them asked and answered questions along the way, and soon arrived in front of the lake of life. Dishan waved his hands to open the passage again, and then the 2 of them jumped into the portal. The 2 of them followed the silver light curtain and soon arrived at the place where the Silver Dragon King was training. My lord, the ice god is here. Dishan knelt down on one knee and said respectfully. Chapter 164, The Ancient 039's Gift to Ask for the Moon. Dishan, thank you for your hard work. Go. Yuna tilted her head slightly, glanced at Lingtian for a few times, and said slowly, Being God, it seems that you are recovering well. Thank you Silver Dragon King for saving me. Lingtian thanked him with a cupped hand. No need to be polite. Go. Yuna shook her head in confusion and said softly, the reason why I saved you is because of the Golden Dragon King. Leo Goo, where is he now? As Soon as he heard the news about Gu Xiaoran, Lingtian's eyes lit up, and he couldn't help but ask, Gu. Yuna said nothing, and stretched out a claw to point at Lingtian. Is he still inside me? Lingtian was stunned for a moment, and then asked in confusion, but why can't I find? He has become one with you. Integrate into one. Lingtian hesitated for a moment, his expression changed slightly, and he quickly sank his consciousness into his body point at this moment. The martial soul space point, in addition to the original Bingji Yanxiang, there is now another golden dragon. The golden dragon and Bingji Yanxiang do not interfere with each other, and use the middle as the boundary to divide the spirit space into two parts. The left half was still shrouded in frost as before, with Wuhan Bingji Yanxiang hovering quietly above the frost, and the ice blue light circulated continuously, exuding bursts of chill point. The right half is now emitting dazzling golden light. A golden and majestic giant dragon stands in the space, and a powerful dragon power suddenly appears in this space point. As we all know, a soul master's martial soul will basically never change point. Now the golden dragon suddenly appears in the martial spirit space, and Gu Xiaoran suddenly disappears from his body. It is very clear, after thinking about Lao Gu's whereabouts, old Gu withdrawing his mind, Lingtian's eyes flashed with silence. So, Lao Gu. At the same time, Gu Yuna's voice sounded leisurely. You are right, the Golden Dragon King has become your martial spirit. Why did he really not do it? After a moment of silence, Lingtian said slowly, teleporting you from the killing city to the Stardao forest. The Golden Dragon King has exhausted his remaining divine power. Even if he does not become your martial spirit, he will disappear soon. Lingtian's pupils shrank and he almost blurted out, can't his divine power be restored? Who told you that his divine power can be restored? Gu. Yuna raised her head and looked at Lingtian in surprise. He is just a spiritual thought of the Golden Dragon King's body. His whole body is composed of divine power. How can he recover his divine power on his own? Can't recover. At this moment, Lingtian suddenly understood a lot. No wonder he always felt something was wrong with Lao Gu's eyes at first. It turned out that at that time, he had already made plans to sacrifice himself. Bastard. Why don't you make it clear? If he knew that Gu Xiaoran's divine power would continue to be consumed, he would never choose to go to the killing city to experience it. You guy. There was a hint of bitterness on Lingtian's face, and he murmured in a low voice, you don't have to think too much. His sacrifice is inevitable. When the Golden Dragon King cut off a part of his consciousness, his original intention was to make it your martial spirit. Looking at the depressed Lingtian, Gu Yuna seemed to understand Gu Xiaoran's choice. Lao Gu, is it possible for him to come back? I don't know either. Gu Yuna shook her head and continued, this is the last gift he left for you. Maybe it contains the answer you want. Gift, don't resist. As soon as she finished speaking, Gu Yuna suddenly stretched out a huge silver dragon claw and placed it on Lingtian's head, and then a silver light shrouded him in it. Boom. Lingtian felt like the world was spinning for a while, and the next moment he appeared in a mysterious space. Here, it is just when he was confused, a familiar golden figure appeared in front of him. Old Gu. Lingtian, long time no see. The golden figure slowly turned around, and it was Gu Xiaoran. At this moment, he was looking at Lingtian with a half smile. Long time no see hammer. Lingtian rolled his eyes at him angrily. Ha. Gu Xiaoran laughed loudly. After the two exchanged words as usual, Lingtian looked at Gu Xiaoran with a complicated expression and said slowly, why don't you tell me the truth? I didn't expect it to be so soon. If I hadn't encountered that assassination, my remaining soul power should be able to accompany you to the Soul Saint. I thought I would say goodbye to you then. Gu Xiaoran patted Lingtian on the shoulder and said softly. He didn't want to leave Lingtian so early, but now he had exhausted his divine power and had to leave. Why, you should know very well that you are definitely no match for Shura. Just by relying on the ice god position, I created my own godhood, and I can rely on my own accumulation to become a god king. I know that you are a self-created god with unlimited possibilities, and with your talent, you will definitely become a god king. But there is no time for you to become a god king now. But Once you become the ice god again, the god realm will immediately feel it. The conversation changed and Guzioran continued, but if I transform into your second martial spirit, and when you become a god, the original ice god will obtain part of my body's divine power through the second martial spirit. You can directly break through the first level gods, and become the god king, and when the time comes, they will not be able to do anything to you, if you are also the god king, but you, besides, the Silver Dragon King, should have told you that I was originally going to be your second martial spirit, but now I just moved the time forward, so you had this plan from the beginning. Of course, I have great foresight. You guy, why don't you make it clear? Hahaha, don't you admire my wit? Looking at his gradually dimming figure, Guzioran smiled freely and said, okay, my time is about to end, and the rest is up to you. Don't let me down. Lingtian looked at Guzioran and nodded, rarely saying a word in reply. See you in the world of gods. At the last second when he disappeared, Guzioran smiled brightly, but there was a trace of parting reluctance in his eyes. Goodbye, God Realm. At this moment, Lingtian was also relieved, watching Guzioran disappear with a faint smile on his lips. Guzioran, as arrogant as ever, Lingtian murmured in a low voice. His thoughts moved slightly, and he also left this space. Have you seen him? Guyuna asked softly. Lingtian nodded slightly and thanked Guyuna sincerely, pointing knew that space was built by Guyuna, and if it hadn't been for her, she wouldn't have seen the last of Guzioran. It's just a little effort. Guyuna waved her hand, signaling Lingtian not to take it to heart, and then said, I hope you won't let him down, and live up to his expectations of you. Chapter 165 Iron-039, I'm not a child QIU. I understand. Lingtian said seriously, since you have inherited the martial spirit of the Golden Dragon King, you can be considered a member of our dragon clan. I leave this scale to you. If you encounter any danger in the future, you can use this scale to ask me for help. As soon as he finished speaking, a piece of silver dragon scale fell into Lingtian's hand. Thank you. Although the Silver Dragon King was seriously injured, his combat power was still top-notch in the Douluo continent. With her protection, Lingtian's safety factor on the continent was greatly improved. When using it, you only need to inject soul power into the scales. Guyuna reminded. Thank you, Silver Dragon King. Lingtian nodded in thanks, then cupped his hands and said, I have something to ask you for help now. What's the matter? Guyuna asked doubtfully. Can you send me to the far north? I have some things that I need to solve there. Lingtian said softly. No problem. Guyuna agreed immediately. She thought it was a big deal, but she didn't expect that it was just a matter of being teleported to the far north. This trivial matter was not worth mentioning to her. The divine power around her body was seen fluctuating, and the next moment a vortex appeared in front of Lingtian. Going in from here is the far north. Lingtian nodded to the Silver Dragon King and thanked him, then stepped forward and entered the portal point. A moment later, the far north point of vortex suddenly appeared in midair, and then a figure appeared from it. Spatial ability is really enviable. Looking at the disappearing space vortex behind him, Lingtian's eyes were filled with yearning. The far north, the cracks in the Snow Valley point. After pondering for a moment, he decided to go find Snow Emperor and the others first. Let's go to the Ice Temple first. He has a special sense of familiarity and intimacy with the land in the far north. It is no exaggeration to say that even with his eyes closed here, he can find the direction of the Ice Temple. Father got, but before Lingtian could take 2 steps, a familiar figure appeared in front of him. Xiaoxu, why are you here? Lingtian asked in surprise. The Snow Emperor smiled sweetly and said, as soon as Father God entered the far north, I sensed your soul power. I see. Lingtian nodded, smiled gently and said, let's go back to the temple first. The Snow Emperor nodded slightly, and then led Lingtian to the Ice Temple point. Although he brought Lingtian with him, the Snow Emperor was still very fast, and the two of them returned to the Ice Temple in less than a quarter of an hour. Why did Father God suddenly return to the far north today? Emperor Zhu glanced at Lingtian complainingly and said somewhat unhappily, I clearly promised that the soul sect would come back, but after waiting for so long, there is still no news of Godfather's return. Well, Lingtian touched his nose in embarrassment and laughed. Well, there was a little accident in the middle, so I was a little relieved when I came back. HMPH Snow Emperor snorted in dissatisfaction. At the beginning, he had promised that the Hun sect would be back soon, but soon after leaving, there was no news for more than a year. No matter how good-tempered the Snow Emperor was, he couldn't help but feel a little annoyed. Xiaoxu, do you want to eat a candied horse? After racking his brains for a long time, Lingtian finally went to the storage space and took out a candied horse, hoping that his favorite snack would be effective. I'm not a child, Emperor. Zhu muttered something. Looking at Lingtian's embarrassed look, he couldn't help but smile and took the candied horse of water and said, Father, please don't deceive Xiaoxu again next time. It won't happen next time. It won't happen again. Lingtian nodded quickly. Clicks. Now Emperor's red lips slightly opened, and he bit down a candied horse. Sweet and sour. It still tastes the same as the candied horse that her father bought for her when she was a child. However, since her father ascended to the divine realm, she has never eaten candied horse on a stick. This is the first time in hundreds of thousands of years. So, Father God is back today. Is there anything I need Xiaoxu's help with? Emperor Zhu put down the candied horse in his hand, raised his beautiful eyes, and looked at Lingtian curiously. Xiaoxu, do you know where the crack in the Snow Valley is? Snow Valley crack. The Snow Emperor raised his brows slightly and asked in a manly voice, Father, are you looking for those people from the Snow Palace? Do you know them? Lingtian said with some surprise. After recalling it for a moment, the Snow Emperor slowly said, I remember that it must have been about 100 years after God's father ascended to the God realm, when several titled Douluo suddenly appeared and came to the far north. Just as we were about to take action, we drove them out. When we were in the far north, one of the titled Douluo suddenly said that he knew Father God, saying that they were his followers and wanted to stay in the ice temple in the far north to worship Father God. My followers. Hearing this, Lingtian looked confused, and his expression became extremely weird. What the hell? The ice god, don't know if there are any other followers. Yes, the Snow Emperor nodded slightly and said, originally I didn't believe them at first, but later they found out your true name, Father God, and the artifact Qian. Finally, I discussed it with Binger and Tayton. In the end, we agreed that they should stay in the far north. But we did not let them come to the ice temple, but divided the area of the Snow Valley crack to them. A bit interesting. A special trip to the far north point. After listening to Snow Emperor's narration, Lingtian's eyes moved slightly, and he became even more interested in the origin of Snow Palace. You must know that in terms of his memory, except for the soul beasts in the far north, few people in the outside world have seen his real name, let alone know how to call the artifact Qian. After pondering for a moment, Lingtian continued to ask, have they done anything weird in the past few years in the far north? Without halfway through speaking, the Snow Emperor paused for a moment, raised his head, stretched out a green-white jade finger, and said with a slight hesitation, however, there is one thing that I don't know if it counts. What happened thousands of years ago? That force suddenly split into two, and almost half of the people left the Snow Valley crack. Half the people left. Lingtian suddenly asked in a deep voice, do you know the reason? In response, Snow Emperor shook his head. Our attitude towards these humans has always been indifferent, as long as it does not affect the far north. They can do whatever they want. Of course I won't ask them why they left here. Lingtian, who was familiar with Snow Emperor's character, was not surprised by her answer. Half the people left, according to what Chenzi said. Snow Palace and Killing Palace both belong to Lingxia Palace. Lingtian recalled what Chenzi had said before, and pondered for a moment. His eyes sparkled, and a faint smile quietly flashed through his eyes. Chapter 166 Snow Palace. Seeking the Moon. He seemed to have suddenly wanted to understand, but despite this, he still can't understand why these people assassinate themselves. What purpose does they assassinate themselves? It seems that you still have to go to the cracked snow valley. There should be an answer you want to know, Father. Snow Emperor called lightly. Liu frowned and said, is there a problem with them? Lingtian shook his head and smiled bitterly. I don't know the believers here, but I don't want to fake those people's attitudes towards the Father God. They send people to the Ice God Temple every century to worship the attitude of sacrifice. If it is fake, why do they do this? Snow Emperor Liu frowned slightly, looking at Lingtian puzzled. Do they still come over to sacrifice? Lingtian showed a touch of surprise. Well, I have come to the Bing Temple once every 100 years, and I have never interrupted. Snowdy nodded seriously. She remembered this very clearly, originally. Wait, Lingtian looked like a meal, and asked puzzled. Then when I returned to the northern place for the first time, why didn't you tell me? At that time, when I saw the Father God was so excited, I forgot about this. Snow Emperor's face was reddish, and some embarrassing said, tomorrow, we will go to the Snow Valley crack. Lingtian paused for a moment, and a touch of light was exposed in his eyes, and said slowly, I want to see, who is they? Do you need to notify Binger, Titan? Snow Emperor asked softly. No need, you are enough. As soon as the words turned, Lingtian looked at Snow Emperor and said with a smile, is the dominance of Lord Snow Emperor in the northern place, and he has no confidence in his strength? No, one is my opponent in the great northern place. Snow Emperor's face was reddish, secretly tightening his fist slightly. Lingtian smiled slightly and said, then my safety, please ask Lord Snow. Father God, rest assured, I will definitely protect you. Hearing Lingtian's words, Snow Emperor nodded hard, and a smaller smile was raised at the corner of his mouth. She did not hesitate to return, because the Father God was in front of herself. This time she finally had the opportunity to protect the father. Thinking of this, Snow Emperor clenched his fist slightly. Well, I believe Xiaoxu. Looking at Snow Emperor, who looked seriously, Lingtian smiled mildly. When is the Father God plan to set off? Snow Emperor asked. After groaning for a moment, Lingtian said slowly, go and prepare first. First wait for me to absorb the soul bone before going, so that there can be more guarantee. Little Snow understands. Snow Emperor slightly jawhead, and then left the hall. From the time when Lingtian absorbs the soul bone, it takes at least 3 days to consume. 3 days, so Snowdy has not stayed too much. Go back to make preparations for the cracks of the Snow Valley. Soon, Lingtian was left in the hall. It's time. When the mind moves, the ice blue divine power spreads from his body. Brush. A dark shadow appeared from the bottom of the hall again, but this time, when Lingtian, who had been prepared, reached out and grabbed it in his own hands. Head. Soul bone. Looking at the black head soul bone in the palm, Lingtian estimates that at least tens of thousands of soul beasts, when the mind moves, call the ice cream. As soon as I touched the soul bone, Qian Shan pulled it up, and then the ice blue light completely shrouded it, and the energy continued to influx into the transformation of the soul bone. After a while, the light spread, and Bing Shan returned to Wuhan space. And a brand new head soul bone. At this moment, lying quietly in Lingtian's palm. It is full of ice blue, dotted with honeysuckle patterns. Call you can start to absorb soul bones. The danger of the head is self-evident, and the soul master must not have a little bit. So even if he once absorbed a piece of trunk bone, Lingtian still concentrated his spirit, and dare not have the slightest care. Stand the head of the head in the palm. Immediately after Lingtian slowly closed his eyes, the ice blue pure soul power led the soul bone. The moment the soul bone was trapped on the forehead, a cool breath drilled into the brain that stimulated his brain from the eyebrow heart. Where this breath goes, the brain seems to be gradually opened. This wonderful feeling is that Lingtian never felt before. At this moment, it seems that things that I didn't understand before seemed to have figured it out. Boom. Suddenly, the space in my mind began to expand. At the same time, Lingtian's mental power has gradually improved, and the connection is closer than before. Now you only need to use this force to use this force. The ice blue skull gradually became transparent. Like the last absorbing trunk bone, I did not feel the obstacle to integrate the soul bone into myself. However, although the process is smooth, the soul bone transformed by Bingyan Xiang, the energy contained in it is very large. It takes a certain time to completely absorb it. The passage of time 1 minute and 1 second. With the continuous enhancement of the mental strength, blue ray gradually gathered into a light ball in the whole body and wrapped the Lingtian's body group. At the same time, in the northern place, the Snow Valley's crack, the Snow Hall point. Although the cracks of Snow Valley are cracks, the space below it is very broad. After entering the cracks of the Snow Valley, the cities began to build a city below. Until today, a vast city of meandering has been built. At this moment in the room of the city center, the main room of the Snow Hall. An elegant middle-aged male character is looking at the book, and from time to time, he also holds the teacup on the side. Looks so comfortable. This person is the master of Zhu Temple, Chen Yu. Suddenly, the candle light flashed in the room. A slender figure suddenly appeared in the room. Father, Chen Z. Chen Yu turned to look at the daughter, who was half kneeling on the ground, and asked a little surprise, "You are not lurking in the temple. Why suddenly come back from there? There are some problems. Is the identity exposed?" Chen Zi guessed. "I found the capital of the killing ice god's heir." When Chen Zi found Lingtian's identity at the beginning, because he didn't dare to pass the news back, he could only stay in the killing capital silently. Bing Shenhei? Can you be sure? In his martial arts, the artifact of the Bingshen is the same. Where is it? Then he brought back. Chen, you couldn't wait to ask. In order to agree with the agreement with the Bingshen, their Snow Hall has been working hard for so many years, and now it is finally waiting for the descendants of the Bingshen to appear. What's wrong? Seeing Chen Xi did not respond for a long time, Chen Yu asked, sinking, and asked, "Father, the heir of the Bingshen, he fell." Chapter 167. The Eye of the Ice God. Beg for the moon. Boom. Chen Zi's pupils suddenly shrank, and the Bing God passed on. This sentence was like a thunderous bombarded in his ear. What the hell is going on? Make it clear. Chen Yu was no longer calm again, and his sharp eyes stared at Chen Zi tightly. Zhu Yan, the master of the killing palace, sent a sun and mouse to attack the Bingshen Chuanren. At that time, I did not hesitate to rescue him from the mouse. I originally thought that the Bingshen heir was leaving the killing capital. Speaking of this, Chen Zi lowered his head ashamed. Bang. The teacup was dropped on the ground heavily, and it was shattered. Chen Yu couldn't hold back his inner anger, and he suddenly got up, and he screamed, "Incredible! What do they do to kill the temple? Zhu Yan, what are you doing?" His voice gradually roared from low to high. The original elegant and gentle face was full of anger at this moment, and his red eyes were burning with anger, and a blue tendon was beating gently. Chen Zi lowered his head, blamed himself, and said with a low voice, "My father is my fault, and I did not protect the Bingshen Chuanren. At this time, you can't blame you. Zhu Yan's strength is not something you can cope." Chen Yu waved his hand and said, "Shen Sheng. Although he is angry now, he is still rational. Don't look at Zhu Zun's guy less than 100 years old, but his strength is too abnormal, let alone the Morning Zi, who is not sure to take it down. Father, what should we do?" Chen Zi said slowly, "Let's go down first. Let the father think about it." Chen Yu looked gloomy. He sat down slowly, and his face had a stubborn point. He wanted to kill the temple and question Zhu Yang. But he quickly calmed down. He was the master of the Snow Hall, and he couldn't take it out. Since Zhu Yan's guy dares to do it, it means that he is ready to be prepared. Maybe now he is waiting for him to kill the temple before. Chen Zi got up. He then said, "By the way, since the identity is exposed, there is no need to return to the temple." "What am I doing?" Chen Zi asked, busy. "Let's stay in Snow Temple first." "Yes." Chen Zi nodded and then exited the room. "Hey." After a long time, Chen Yu's face changed, and finally the room sighed with a loud sound. 3 days later, Ice Temple Point. The light on Lingtian has been flashing, and it has continued until now. Point. As the light gradually dispersed, the breath on his body became more and more stable. Point. Opening his eyes slowly, Lingtian felt that everything outside was changed. Everything was so clear, although Lingtian didn't know the strength of his mental strength and couldn't judge. He could feel that the original spiritual knowledge in his mind was almost doubled. Point. Although it is unclear to increase the mental power, it must have been improved. Have you been 3 days later? Looking at the timer next to it, a surprise color flashed in Lingtian's eyes. Originally, he felt that the speed of absorbing the soul this time was very fast, and it would not be more than 2 days at most, but it took 3 days without imagination. However, although it takes not to be short, the improvement effect this time is very good. Point. Although the soul power is only a 1 level, his weaker mental power has been greatly improved. Point. The second is the soul bone skill. Point. Although the soul bone only provided 1 soul skill, it gave Lingtian a big surprise. Point. Soul bone skill. Eyes of the Ice God. With a thought in his mind, Lingtian's eyes condensed, and his sapphire-like eyes became even deeper, with brilliant and bright light flowing in them. Point. When Eyes of the Ice God is turned on, you can become immune to hallucinations, charms and other similar skills at the same time. It gives the user a powerful insight ability, which allows him to see the flaws in the opponent's soul skills and see through the soul master's true strength. Point. However, the ability to see through flaws requires a certain amount of soul power and mental power. The specific amount of consumption is determined by the opponent's soul power. Every time the opponent's soul power exceeds your own by 1 level, the consumption of soul power and mental power will increase by 3%. When using it, be sure to pay attention to the opponent's soul power. If you use it on a soul master whose soul power is much higher than your own, you may faint before the skill takes effect. However, when the enemy's soul power is not as good as yours, the auxiliary battle with the Eyes of the Ice God will be easier than before. Point. In addition, the Eyes of the Ice God also have 3 different abilities: farsightedness, clairvoyance, and vision. Point. Farsightedness, the ability to see things far away. Point. Perspective, can see the target regardless of obstacles. Vision allows the other party to see the created illusion. Point. In addition to the farsightedness of these 3 soul powers, the soul power consumption is also determined by the opponent's level. Note, all abilities will continue to increase with the improvement of soul power. Although the head soul bone only provided Lingtian with 1 soul skill this time, the improvement brought by Ice God's eyes was unmatched by other soul skills. Suddenly, Lingtian stood up and walked to the place where the soul bone flew out. Point. Now that he has the Eyes of the Ice God, he really wants to know what else is underneath. Point. With a thought in his mind, he cast his gaze into the depths of the Ice Temple. Point. The space that was originally foggy in the field of vision can now be seen through the Eyes of the Ice God, with 5 light groups of 3 black and 2 red. In addition, there seems to be something hidden in the darkness, but no matter how Lingtian observes, the Ice God's eyes are still unable to see clearly. It seems that the strength is still not enough. The 5 light groups should be the remaining 5 soul bones, and the remaining things inside are still unable to be seen through with the current Ice God's eyes. But after he absorbs all the soul bones, he should be able to know what's next. It's time to go to the Snow Valley crack. As soon as he finished speaking, Lingtian's eyes narrowed slightly, and a flash of light flashed quietly. Point. At the same time, the Snow Emperor outside the inner hall also sensed it. His eyebrows moved slightly with a smile on his lips, and then he flashed to the door of the inner hall. Point. Just as he was looking at Lingtian, who had just walked out of the hall, the Snow Emperor raised his lips slightly and called out softly, "God the Father, let's go." Lingtian smiled gently and walked to the Snow Emperor. The far north, the Heartland. Point. Snow Valley crack, located at the junction of the core circle and the outer circle of the far north. Point. When the Snow Emperor handed over this place to them, he also had the idea of reducing trouble. After all, there are always human soul masters appearing in the peripheral areas, and handing this area to human soul masters for management also reduced a lot of trouble. Point. After a while, Snow Emperor and Lingtian stopped on a snowfield. There, down here, looking in the direction of the Snow Emperor's finger, there was a crack dozens of meters wide under the snowfield. Looking down the crack, one could see a bottomless darkness. Chapter 168. Cracks in the Snow Valley, the City of Ice and Snow. seeking the moon. Is there such a place in the far north? Lingtian looked at this crack with some surprise. In his memory, he did not remember that there was such a place in the far north. This appeared 100 years after you became a god. Snow Emperor saw Lingtian's doubts and said softly, "No." Lingtian nodded with sudden realization. He thought his memory was wrong just now. We going down from here? Of course not. The Snow Emperor smiled mysteriously and then led Lingtian to the other end of the snowfield. Then he waved his hand, took out a crystal white token, and walked to an inconspicuous small snow hill point. After sweeping away the snow, a concave cavity appeared on the stone wall point. Click. The shiny white token was placed right into the hole, making a sound similar to a mechanism closing. Point. Boom. The snow on the snow hill suddenly shook violently, and then a secret door slowly appeared. Father God, let's go in. After doing all this, Snow Emperor took off the token and said with a smile, Lingtian nodded slightly and retracted his gaze from the token point as the two of them entered the cave in trance, and after another burst of noise, the secret door on the snow hill slowly closed and returned to its original appearance. No flaws could be seen from the outside point. After entering the secret door, there is a secret passage inside point. The road continues downward and there is no end in sight at a glance. However, every 10 meters or so on the walls on both sides there is a bright orb emitting a faint light, which prevents the deep passage from falling into complete darkness. Middle point. After walking along the secret passage for a while, Lingtian couldn't help but ask, "This token of yours, this is what the people from Snow Palace gave me." The Snow Emperor shook the token in his hand and then said as he walked, "After those humans completed building this passage, they handed this token to me and then told me how to enter here. But I'm also the first. This is my first time here. Father God is interested in a token. I also have a token here that looks similar to yours. I wonder if it is real." As he said that, Lingtian handed the token that Chenzi had given to him before to the Snow Emperor. "Let me see." Snow Emperor picked up the two tokens and compared them carefully. "This one from Father God should also be real." After pondering for a moment, the Snow Emperor said thoughtfully, "It seems that the person who gave you the token should have a high status in the Snow Palace." "The status is not low. How did you tell?" Lingtian asked curiously. "When they gave me this token, Binga thought it was interesting and wanted to get a few, but those guys said the quantity was limited and they didn't have many." Snow Emperor explained softly, and when he mentioned Ice Emperor, he couldn't help but raise the corners of his mouth slightly. Point. All the way down the dark passage, the surrounding temperature becomes lower and lower. After almost a quarter of an hour, we finally arrived at the end of the corridor. A black door stood at the door. Standing in front of the door, we could vaguely hear the sounds coming from inside. Point. When he walked out of the door, the scene in front of him was completely beyond Lingtian's imagination. On both sides of them, there are two winding and towering mountains extending out, like two giant dragons, and like a tall city wall standing at both ends of the snow valley. Point. Although it is located at the bottom of a valley with towering mountains on both sides, it is not as oppressive as Lingtian imagined. Point. A huge city gate spans between the mountains, dozens of meters wide, blocking the entire snow valley. Point. Directly above the city gate is written the word Snow Palace. The mountains next to it are covered with frost mountains, covered in silver and exuding a misty brilliance under the sunlight, which makes it a special scenery. Point. Spectacular. The overall first impression given to Lingtian is that it is spectacular. It has to be said that human creativity is infinite, and such a landscape can be built even in the cracks. "Let's go in." It didn't take long for the two of them to arrive at the bottom of the city wall. Point. The Soul Masters stationed at the city wall immediately discovered Lingtian and Snow Emperor. "Who are you?" When the leading captain discovered that both of them were unfamiliar faces, he immediately became wary and asked about their origins. Snow Emperor didn't say anything, just threw the token up. Point. The leading captain caught the token. There was no name on it, only the word Emperor was engraved on it. Point. After seeing this word, his pupils shrank suddenly. Point. Because it represents the Snow Emperor, the true master of the far north. A soul beast king who even the master of their snow palace dare not offend easily. "Open the city gate," he quickly ordered his subordinates behind him to open the city gate, and at the same time, jumped under the city wall point. Although the city wall was more than 30 meters high, he still landed safely, after relying on the wall several times. Snow Palace Qianlin, I have met the Lord of the Far North. After Qianlin saluted the Snow Emperor, his tone was very respectful, and he did not dare to be careless in the slightest. Take me to see your palace master. Snow Emperor nodded slightly and said calmly, yes. Qianlin nodded quickly. At this moment, the tall city gate slowly opened. Sir, Snow Emperor, please come inside. Qianlin made an invitation gesture to Snow Emperor, and then took a step to the side, to let the city gate open. At the same time, he winked at the subordinate beside him, indicating that he should go back, and inform the palace master immediately. After Emperor Zhu and Lingtian looked at each other, they walked into the gate together. 2 adults, please follow me. Although Qianlin didn't know Lingtian's identity, he didn't dare to be careless seeing the Snow Emperor's attitude toward him, and followed the two of them with a respectful expression. After entering the city, under the leadership of Qianlin, the two of them walked towards the most eye-catching building in the center of the city. That is the core location of the Snow Palace. The master of the Snow Palace and the senior elders are all there, so this is also the place with the highest status in the city. Everyone in this city is a disciple of Snow Palace. According to their talents or status, they are divided into countless classes, moving closer from the outer city to the inner city. 2 adults, just walk forward for a while and you will find the main hall. I will send you here first. Qianlin bowed to the two of them, and then turned around and left. Let's go. After Emperor Zhu and Lingtian looked at each other, they continued walking forward. After walking along the road for about a quarter of an hour, the two finally arrived at the gate of the Snow Palace. This palace was magnificent and its momentum was not inferior to the buildings outside. At this moment, a middle-aged man was standing in front of the door waiting. The master of the Snow Palace, Chen Yu, has met Lord Snow Emperor. Chen Yu bowed his hands to the Snow Emperor, and then said, it's a coincidence that Lord Snow Emperor is here today. I originally wanted to go to you to discuss something. You want to see me for something? A look of surprise appeared in the Snow Emperor's plain eyes. Please, Chen Yu nodded and then led the two of them into the hall. Chapter 169. I'm the descendant of the Ice God. Beg for the moon. Soon, Chen Yu led the two of them into a conference hall. Sir, Snow Emperor. As soon as they sat down, before the two of them could speak, Chen Yu couldn't wait to say, I have another important matter to discuss with you. Lingtian and Zhu looked at each other, and quickly decided to listen to Chen Yu's story first. We discovered the descendant of Lord Ice God near the Killing City some time ago. The descendant of the Ice God. The Snow Emperor was slightly startled and looked at Lingtian aside with a strange expression. He should be talking about God the Father, right? Lingtian nodded slightly to the Snow Emperor and signaled her with his eyes not to reveal his identity yet and to continue listening to what the Lord of the Snow Palace wanted to say. Can you confirm his identity? Snow Emperor nodded knowingly and said calmly, he must be the descendant of the Ice God. Chen Yu was thinking about how to explain this matter, but did not notice the subtle change in the Snow Emperor's tone. He continued to talk to himself, because his martial spirit is the artifact of Lord Ice God, Bingji and Shang. Snow Emperor nodded expressionlessly. Just one. That's not right. Why is Snow Emperor's expression so calm? Snow Emperor's reaction was beyond his expectation, and there was no surprise or joy as imagined. Haven't you been waiting for the Ice God? Now that I heard the news about the descendant of the Ice God, my expression should have changed, no matter how bad it was. What exactly went wrong? Chen Yu silently thought about the reason in his heart. But no matter how much he thought about it, he could never imagine that the successor of the Ice God he was talking about was sitting in front of him. Then, where is he now? Emperor Zhu may have felt that his reaction was too bland, so he thought for a moment and added another sentence. The descendant of the Ice God has fallen. Hint of gloom flashed across Qian Yu's face, and his tone became deeper. Fallen. Emperor Zhu couldn't hold back, and turned his head to look at Lingtian with a strange expression. Who are you telling me has fallen? If God the Father has fallen, then who is sitting in front of me? Qian Yu didn't notice the Snow Emperor's expression, lowered his head and continued, do you still remember the group of people who left the snowfield? They also discovered the descendants of the Ice God. In the end, they were still weak and unprotected. The descendant of the Ice God, he was assassinated by Zuzu, the current master of the killed palace. He knew that he was not necessarily Zhu Zui's opponent. Therefore, I chose to tell the Snow Emperor about the successor of the Ice God, and let the Snow Emperor explore Zhu Zui's trump card first. No matter who loses or wins, their snow palace will not suffer any losses. Now that the successor of the Ice God has fallen, he also has to consider the future of the snow palace. Kill the palace, assassinate. At this time, these words kept echoing in Snow Emperor's mind. How dare they touch God the Father? Now, she finally understood why Lingtian had to investigate the reason why the cracks in the snow valley increased his strength. As soon as he returned to the far north point, the expression on Snow Emperor's face was instantly cold, as if a layer of frost had condensed on it. Emperor Zhu took a deep breath and turned his head to look at Lingtian. Although she didn't say a word, her questioning look already explained everything she wanted to ask. This is right. Seeing Snow Emperor's expression now, Qian Yu nodded with satisfaction and thought to himself, this is the correct reaction this time. At this moment, Lingtian sighed and said, it's all over. Anyone who hurts God the Father must die. Upon learning that Lingtian had actually been assassinated, a flash of murderous intent flashed across Snow Emperor's eyes, and his soul power fluctuated throughout his body, as if he was about to go on a killing spree, to settle the score with Zuzu. Zhu. Lingtian stopped the Snow Emperor, and said in a deep voice, I will handle the matter in the killing city myself, but you must not go there. It is the trial place of the God King. If you go there, Ashley, that guy will definitely leave you behind. Down. Although the divine realm has regulations, gods cannot go down to the realm at will. But God Shura is not a man of rules. He will not gamble with the Snow Emperor's life, but they believe me, they will definitely make them pay the price. Although Lingtian's voice was calm, if you listen carefully, you can still hear a hint of murderous intent in it. This time Zhu made him completely angry. He will definitely find the place in the killing city. Emperor Zhu saw the determination in Lingtian's tone, and although he was a little reluctant, he still nodded slightly. Lord Snow Emperor, may I ask who this is? After listening to the conversation between the two, Qian Yu finally came to his senses and quickly asked Zundi about Lingtian's identity. I am what you just said, the descendant of the Ice God. Lingtian walked up to Qian Yu and followed Qian Yu's guess and admitted his identity as the descendant of the Ice God. This statement is more reasonable than the reincarnation of the Ice God. In addition, he still knows nothing about the Snow Palace until now, so the fewer people who know that he is the Ice God, the better. The descendant of the Ice God sounds good too. A smile appeared on Lingtian's lips, and he immediately decided to use the identity of the Ice God's successor in the outside world from now on. As long as he didn't say anything, who would know that he was the Ice God? Are you the descendant of the Ice God? Qian Yu looked at Lingtian in disbelief and said incoherently, Bing. No, haven't you been assassinated by Zhu Wei? Although I was shot once, I luckily escaped. Lingtian said with a smile. Sir Snow Emperor, this is really. Qian Yu was still a little hard to accept. He swallowed and looked to the side of Snow Emperor for confirmation. Lingtian also looked at Snow Emperor and gave her another look. Lingtian is the Ice God, the descendant. The Snow Emperor nodded understandingly, and then followed Lingtian's wishes, and confirmed his identity as the successor of the Ice God. Since you are the descendant of the Ice God, your martial spirit should be. Qian Yu took a deep breath, and then asked cautiously. Before Qian Yu could finish speaking, Lingtian flipped his wrist lightly, and an ice blue long sword appeared in his palm, emitting a faint light. It is indeed Bingji Yinshan. When Qian Yu saw the ice blue sword, he stared at it tightly without blinking. Can You believe it now. Before Lingtian finished speaking, he was interrupted by Chen Yu's movements. Bang. He was seen kneeling on one knee, clasping his fists with both hands, saluting Lingtian solemnly, and then a deep and loud voice sounded. Chen Yu, the current master of the Snow Palace, has met the descendant of the Ice God. What do you mean? Lingtian was stunned for a moment, feeling confused. My subordinate was excited for a moment. Please forgive me, young master. He originally thought that there was no hope of seeing the Ice God's successor again in this life, but he didn't expect that the reality would give him a big surprise. Chen Yu stood up slowly and said with excitement in his tone, "Our Lingtian Palace is already in the far north and has been waiting for you, young master, for a long time." "You there?" was a thoughtful look in Lingtian's eyes, and he was about to ask something, but was interrupted by Chen Yu. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelos. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 170, The Origin of Lingtian Hall. Please wait. I saw what he suddenly thought of, and his expression suddenly became serious, and then went to the table in front of the table, and pressed the above organ point with a bang. At the next moment, the wall slowly opened to twice. "Master Snow, please come to me," said Chen Yu. Took the lead in walking into the portal. "Look up and see." With Snow Emperor's protection around him, Lingtian did not hesitate to follow. Soon the three passed through the martyrdom and entered a more spacious room. "Young Lord Zum has a significant, please forgive me, since Chen Yu can go to the Killing Temple to insert spies. The Killing Hall can naturally send people to Zoo Temple. In order to avoid the problem of the Bingshen heir, he brought Lingtian and Snow Emperor into the dark room. No, I just heard the meaning of the Morning Palace. It seems that I know that the Bingshen Chuan will appear." Lingtian waved his hand, and then he asked like a light and windy. But when he was talking, there was a touch of sperm in his eyes. "The ancestor who founded our Lingtian temple once said that one day the Bingshen heir will appear on the mainland one day, so we have been waiting on the world to the world until now," Chen Yu said with emotion. "The ancestor of the master of that morning, shouldn't the relationship with the Ice God not shallow?" Lingtian asked tentatively. "This is ashamed." There was an embarrassing look in Chen Yu's eyes, and then continued, "According to the preaching of the ancestor, he actually has no deep relationship with the Bingshen." Oh, hearing this, Lingtian couldn't help but feel puzzled. There is no deep friendship. Why do you have to wait for the Bingshen heir? According to the predecessor, he was chased and killed at the time, and was rescued by the Bing God when he was hanging. Later, in order to repay the life of the Bingshen Lord, he promised to guard the Bing God temple until the heir of the Bingshen Point everyone came to the land of the Polar Northern. Chen Yu's slow way roughly explained the origin of Lingtian temple. "Ah, your senior's called Chen Yan." After listening to Chen Yu's remarks, Lingtian's eyes were light, and the name appeared in his mind instantly. "Exactly. You know the ancestor?" Chen Yu asked curiously. "Well, the senior gave it. The Ice God." The Ice God was very impressed. "When I accepted the inheritance, I also heard this name from the mouth of the Bingshen, so I had a little impression." Lingtian hid. "Haha, I did not expect Lord Bingshen to remember that predecessor," Chen Yu said, a little proud. Lingtian nodded, and he did have a little impression of the Morning Point. "I remember the time when it was about to be founded. He saved a very stubborn child on the way to the human world." Thinking of this, Lingtian couldn't help remembering the scene that day. "Senior, please wait," the boy suddenly said. "Huh?" Lingtian turned his head and looked at the boy, curious. "Please tell me your name. I must repay you," the teenager said seriously. "Do you want to repay me?" Lift your hand. Don't need to take it to your heart." Lingtian laughed and waved his hand. "For you, it is the help of me, but it is a life-saving grace for me." However, despite this, the teenager still stubbornly said, "Also, this seat is called Lingtian. If you can reach the title Douluo in the future, you can go to the place of the Polar North to find me. I will definitely be the title Douluo. Go to the place where I have to repay your life-saving grace. Ha ha ha. There is aspiring. That book is waiting for you, Ling. Qian didn't take this vow to hear the vows of the teenager after all. Although everyone has martial arts on the continent, there are very few souls who can become soul masters, and those who can become title Douluo are nothing more. He doesn't feel that the child who rescue it will be the one who can be the title Douluo. Unexpectedly, the child really became the title Douluo, and finally came to the Bing God temple, meticulously fulfilling the agreement that he wanted to make. Now Lingtian finally notes that the origin of this group of ice god believers. As for the incident of artifact Bing Yanjian, he remembered that when he was saved, he used Bing Yanjian. It should be mentioned at the time, and then he was remembered by the child. Being able to wait for the original sentence to the first place. They are indeed a real ice god believers at the same time. Chenyu sighed. After waiting for so many years, we finally waited for you. Hard. You. Lingtian sighed and said with a sigh. He did not expect that someone would be so persistent. For the original vow, he resolutely entered the place where he was in the north. This is the oath we should fulfill. Chen. You shook his head and said sincerely, if there was no Bing God to save each other, there would be no later Chen Zhe ancestors, let alone us now. At this moment, Lingtian adds a bit of good impression on Zhu Hall. Although they don't know much about them now, the agreement to stick to their ancestors proves at least they are trustworthy people. After explaining the cause of Lingxia temple, the two finally said back to the business. After taking a sip, Lingtian put down the teacup and asked, listening to the morning temple lord just mentioned Lingxia temple many times. Is there a connection between your Snow Hall and that killer organization? You are good with a sigh. Chenyu said with emotion, our Snow Temple is indeed part of Lingxia Temple. At the time, the ancestors established Lingxia Temple. After a few assassination tasks, I want to exercise the disciples in the temple. As a result, Lingxiadan was getting bigger and bigger, becoming the most powerful killer organization on the Douluo continent. Also caught up. Unfortunately, the good times don't last long. There are differences in the inside of Lingtian, because the reputation of Lingxia Temple is getting bigger and bigger. Some of the people in the hall are unwilling to be lonely. They don't want to continue to adhere to the promise of the ancestors, let alone stay in the place where they are in the extreme north. In the end, because of the inconsistency of the concept, Lingxia Temple divided into Zhu Hall and Kill Hall. The people of our Snow Temple continue to abide by the ancestors' agreement, completely close the cracked snow valley in a place in the north. Fengyun eventually attacked by the Soul Division group of the entire continent and had to disappear after entering the killing capital. Chenyu paused for a moment and continued, the assassinations you suffered before the killing capital were from the killing hall. The first is a zodiac rat's mouse of the zodiac signs of the killer, the master of the palace owner Zhu Yan, and Zhu Yan, as the master of killing the temple, he should know your identity, etc. Lingtian frowned slightly, sinking, can they still come out in the killing capital? They controlled a channel different from the Hell Road in the killing capital, and they could freely enter and exit the killing's freedom in and out of the killing capital. When I heard this, Lingtian finally knew that the person who assassinated that day, why could he just block the exit of Hell Road and wait for himself to come out? It turned out that these people were people inside the capital. In this way, I'm afraid that every move after entering the killing capital by myself will be watched by the killing hall. No wonder the king of the killing at the time opened the Hell Road so happily. It should have been known that someone would wait outside to assassinate himself. Combined with the clues given by Chenyu, Lingtian soon guessed the matter, but now there is a place where I can't understand why Zhu Yan assassinated himself. Even if he was the so-called Bing Shenchuanren, did he conflict with him? Why would he assassinate himself? Thinking of this, Lingtian looked at Chenyu. Why should he assassinate me? I don't know either. Chen Yu also shook his head and said, since the killing of the temple was besieged by the whole continent, the vitality injures finally entered the killing capital, and we completely broke the contact between us. At That time, their snow hall was still closed, and they did not know that the killing hall was besieged. Otherwise, the two halls come from homologous relationships, and their snow hall will definitely not sit at the killing hall and be besieged by the mainland. Lingtian's fingertips knocked on the table case. After groaning for a moment, he looked at Chen Yu slowly. What is the movement of the killing hall recently? There are a lot of recent actions to kill the temple. First of all, the 5 titles of Douluo and the Zodiac challenge the Kibao Liu Zhang, Blue Electric Tyrannosaurus Langzang and other old names, but for a while, it also made Ling Sha Hall's reputation. At the same time, they also took out 3 orange kills, the Martial Arts Palace, the Star Luo Empire and the Heavenly Dao Empire, exchanged the finals of the National Elite Soul Master Contest. Seeing the current situation, the snowman seems to have a lot of plot. Chen Yu reported the information collected a few days ago to Lingtian. Soul Master Contest. Lingtian narrowed his eyes, groaned for a moment, and said slowly, Zhu Yan is the master of killing the temple, and he should participate in this Soul Master Contest. He should participate. Chen Yu nodded for a moment. According to the information that Chen Zi passed back in these years, Zhu Yan's wild and mad personality should not let go of this opportunity to make a big hit. How is Zhu Yan's strength? Lingtian continued. 10 years ago, his strength was weaker than me, but now 10 years have passed with his talent. I'm afraid that it will not be much worse than me, and it should also reach the peak of 198th Douluo. Chen Yu some daunting ways. Chapter 171. You are the person I trust the most. The strength of the peak Douluo is not weak, and there are few opponents on the entire continent. But Snow Emperor happened to be one of them. However, the final venue of the Soul Master Contest was held in Wuhan City. Snow Emperor's identity would definitely be discovered by the people in the martial arts temple once they entered the city. Therefore, if you want to deal with Zhu Yan's transformation, you must not do it in Wuhan City. Then you can only lead him to the outside of the city. Thinking of this, Lingtian suddenly turned on, and the framework of a plan gradually formed in his heart. At this moment, Chen Yu suddenly said, Young lord, what happened to the Morning Palace? Lingtian turned his head and looked at Chen Yu. Young lord, I saw that he suddenly arched, and then Shen Sheng said, if you want to take a shot against Zhu Yan, Zhu Temple will help each other to clear all the obstacles for the young master. Killing Hall and Snow Temple began to have homologous, and the master of the Morning Hall really wanted to do it? Lingtian narrowed his eyes, but he still said calmly, since Zhu Yan's initiative to take the initiative, he has no relationship with us. Chen Yu had no hesitation, saying a word and one word. The master of the Morning Hall is serious. Snow Temple is loyal to the ice god from beginning to end, and ask the lord to believe in the loyalty of my waiting. Chen Yu looked at Lingtian and said seriously. Lingtian's eyes narrowed slightly and smiled without revealing. You believe it is good. Chen Yu arched his hands and stopped this topic. So far trust was established in the contacts again and again, and now he has been in contact with Lingtian for the first time, so his attitude towards Lingtian is not very surprised. The master of the Morning Hall should know this token. Lingtian took out the white token warmly. At that time, the capital of the killing was to help me stop a title Douluo. Unfortunately, the situation was urgent and there was no time to express the gratitude. I'll convey it. It turned out to be the token of the heir. Chen Yu reached out to pick up the token, and a clear color flashed in his eyes. At that time, Chen Zi rescued Lingtian outside the killing capital. The token should be left at that time. Then he arched his hands and said with a smile, you can rest assured, I will thank you for you. Then please ask the master of the Morning Hall. We won't stay much if we have something. Lingtian also said with a gentle smile. This time he was very satisfied with the trip to the Snow Hall, solving most of his doubts after the killing capital came out. In addition to the origin of Lingsha Temple, the most important thing is to know who the assassination of yourself. You are going to leave the world now? Chen Yu heard the words, I will stay in a great northern place for a while. Why is there anything else? Lingtian heard his brows raise slightly and narrowed his eyes to look at Chen Yu. When the mind moves, a red token appears in Chen Yu's palm. This is a message token of the Snow Hall. If the young master can be connected through the token, speaking, Chen Yu will have the token, then, thank you for the lord of the Chen dynasty. After groaning for a while, Lingtian smiled and took the token. Young master, let me send you again with Snow Emperor. Chen Yu also smiled at his eyes. The master of the morning hall is the master. Lingtian slightly stunned. Master. Snow Emperor, walk here. Speaking, Chen Yu's smile was attracted to the 2. Both he and Lingtian knew that this token was not only a tool for communication, but more importantly, it represented the Snow Palace. Taking the token also meant that Lingtian initially recognized the Snow Palace point at the same time. This is also a message from Lingtian to Chen Yu. He clearly told Chen Yu that he would not reject Zhu Dan because of killing the palace point, but the specific level of trust depends on the attitude towards Snow Palace point, especially Zhu Dan's attitude towards Shadian. Some things are not enough just to say it, they need to be proven by actual actions, and this time he wants to take action against Shadian. This is an opportunity. If Chen Yu unswervingly supports him, then Lingtian will also believe in Zhu Dan's sincerity from now on. After a while, on the crack in the Snow Valley point, boom, there was a loud noise from the originally inconspicuous Snow Hill point. Then there was a flash of white light, and 2 figures suddenly appeared in front of the Snow Hill. It was Lingtian and Snow Emperor who had just come out of the Snow Palace point. Chen Yu did not take them through the original route in, but took a more hidden secret passage to leave the Snow Palace point. After all, the Ice God's successor is of great importance, and the less we know, the safer it is for Lingtian. Father God, we'll talk about it when we get back. The Snow Emperor nodded slightly, quickly understood what Lingtian meant, and then flew towards the direction of the Ice Temple in a flashpoint. A moment later, the Ice Temple. Father God, why did he think you were dead before? What happened in the meantime? The Snow Emperor couldn't wait to ask. As soon as he entered the inner hall point, when he was in the Snow Palace before, the Snow Emperor asked about this matter. However, at that time, Lingtian directly led him away with a few words. In addition, there were outsiders present at the time, so he did not ask too many questions. It was not until he returned to the Ice Temple that the Snow Emperor finally couldn't help but ask about the reason. It's all over. After Lingtian was silent for a moment, he shook his head slightly and didn't seem to mention this matter. Father God, I want to know. Emperor Zhu raised his head and looked at Lingtian, his eyes full of seriousness and persistence, obviously not wanting to let things go by just like this. Well, seeing the serious expression on the Snow Emperor's face, Lingtian sighed helplessly and then explained, I was indeed shot in the chest by Zhu at that time, but I was later saved by the Silver Dragon King with the Crystal of Life. Silver Dragon King? The Snow Emperor was slightly startled, then asked doubtfully, isn't she in the Stardao Forest? She still knows about the Silver Dragon King. Thousands of years ago, Qian went to the far north to find the Snow Emperor, hoping that all the 100,000-year soul beasts in the far north would be loyal to the Silver Dragon King. Of course, Snow Emperor would not accept Qian's request. Although Qian was slightly stronger than Snow Emperor, he did not dare to take action in the far north. In the end, this matter was dropped. From then on, the Snow Emperor also knew that there was still a former king in the Star Forest, the Silver Dragon King. However, the Silver Dragon King is far away in the Star Forest and has no contact with Father God, so why should he help? I had part of the divine consciousness of the Golden Dragon King in my body. When I was in danger in the Killing City, the Golden Dragon King used his last strength to send me to the Star Forest. Then the Silver Dragon King used the Crystal of Life to save me. Lingtian explained softly. Golden Dragon King, Silver Dragon King, how many things does Father God hide from him? Thinking of this, Snow Emperor lowered his head silently. His heart seemed to be in a mess, and he couldn't figure it out, and there were layers of gloom in front of his eyes. Xiaoxu, what's wrong with you? Lingtian watched Snow Emperor, who didn't speak for a long time, and asked softly, is Father God not trust me? After a moment of silence, Snow Emperor said quietly, of course not. Why do you ask like this? Lingtian asked in surprise. Snow Emperor's red lips pursed slightly, looking at Lingtian with his eyes resentful, and said slowly, why did the Father God say these things just now? Do you mean the King of Jinlong? Lingtian's eyes showed a touch of realization, and helplessly smiled, and said, "You just wronged me. When I was in the northern place, I did not know that I had the consciousness of the King of Dragon King in my body. Then I learned about this after I came to the Stardao Great Forest. It turned out to be like this." Snow Emperor felt the cheeks slightly hot, and lowered his head down. "So, do you understand now?" The corner of Lingtian's mouth evoked a bit of bitter smile, and then said, "If you don't trust you, how can you let you know my true identity?" "I misunderstand the father." Snow Emperor was embarrassed and wimped, and after listening to Lingtian's explanation, she also responded, "You will always trust you." Lingtian seriously said that his trust in Snow Emperor was unattended, otherwise he would not give the entire polar northern land to Snow Emperor after he flew up the God Realm. "I know." The corner of Snow Emperor's mouth was slightly tilted, and his frowning brows also opened. "So, don't think about so much in the future." Lingtian smiled gently. Although he does not often return to the extreme north, this does not affect his trust in Snow Emperor. It can be said that now on the entire continent, only those who really trust in Lingtian now are Snow Emperor and Qian Renxue, and they have to trust Snow Emperor more. This is not even comparable to Qian Renxue. Of course, this is not to say that in Lingtian's heart, Qian Renxue's status is not as good as Snow Emperor. It is because Lingtian and Qian Renxue have a relationship with each other, but there is still a martial arts temple behind Qian Renxue. Although he is not afraid of Bidden and Qian Dou, he does not want to be paid attention to them in advance, so before there is enough strength, many things still have to conceal Qian Renxue. It's like the Land of the North and the Ice God position. He will tell Qian Renxue, but it will definitely not now. "Father, when are you going to deal with the humans who assassinate you?" As soon as Zhu Yan, Snow Emperor's cold eyes were full of murderous intentions. She will never let go. Anyone who has hurt the Father God, if it wasn't for the obstruction of Lingtian just now, she may have hit the capital of killing now. Although Zhu Yan is the peak of 1988, but in the eyes of Snow Emperor, the 700,000-year-old Soul Beast King, it is no different from other human soul masters. Even if there is no blessing in the north, there is no pressure to deal with him. Wait until he takes the initiative to leave the capital of killing. Soul Master Contest. Lingtian nodded and said slowly, "After the Soul Master Contest is over, it is the timing of our shot. At that time, you need Xiaox's help." Snow Emperor nodded heavily and did not ask too much about the specific plan. As long as she knew the father's plan, she needed her help. After a moment of silence, Snowdy suddenly said, "Father God." Lingtian heard. Chapter 172 Chen Yuan-039 S decision. "What you said in Snow Temple before, is it true?" said. Snow Emperor looked up. His eyes looked at Lingtian with expectations. That is, you said that you won't leave the place in the north for the time being." Oh, what is it? Is it true?" Father, if you don't make trouble, I will not leave the place in the north for the time being." "Real? Of course it's true." Looking at Snow Emperor's surprise expression, the corner of Lingtian's mouth evoked a touch of smile. Now that it is almost 3 months left from the National Elite Soul Teacher Contest, and the Ice God Temple has improved the ice attributes, so he intends to take advantage of this time to break the Soul King. At that time, another Soul Ring and Soul Bone, Lingtian's strength will usher in a huge improvement. In addition, the Killing Hall will also have to participate in this game. Lingtian always has a premonition that will happen, and to improve 1 point of strength to give yourself a little more guarantee. At the same time, Snow Hall. Alas, come in, father, find me, well, close the door and sit next to me. Yes, soon. After the mornings he took the seat, I saw the token of myself at first glance. Father, how can my token be here? Chen Z picked up the token and asked in surprise. She clearly remembers that a token was handed over to the Bingshenchuan people at the time. Is it that my father found someone near the killing capital? When Chen Z was full of doubts about this, Chen Yu slowly said to explain the origin of the token. This token was sent back by the Bingshen. It turned out to be the ice god. From speaking of half of the morning, Chen Zi suddenly opened his eyes, watching his father. Incredible. Impossible. She obviously saw that the bones of the Bingshen who have no bones. Did you hear it wrong? Thinking of this, Chen Zi took a deep breath and asked, "Father, what did you just say?" "Zia, Bing Shen, he was still alive. Although Zhu Yan hit the shot at that time, he still escaped and lived. This is why you did not find the corpse. Come and ask the origin of our father's snow temple, and this token was sent by him. Chen Yu did not sell Guanzi. He directly explained Lingtian's affairs with his daughter, still alive on the Lord." Chen Zi was shocked and confirmed again. "Well, he is now in the Ice God Temple in the extreme northern place. Lord, really alive this time?" Chen Zi's tone was full of surprises. She has been annoyed because of the fall of the Bingshen who has fallen. They waited for thousands of years of ice gods, for thousands of years, and they finally appeared, but they watched him died in front of him, but she couldn't do it. Although no one blamed her, Chen Zi was still in blame. And now, when I heard the news of the Bingshen who was still alive, the self-blame and annoyance in the heart of Chen Zi disappeared instantly. The big stone that originally pressed on his heart was finally removed. When Chen Zi was calm, Chen Yu said slowly, "Zia, now there is one thing for the father. You need to do it. Only you can do it in the whole snow hall. Only I can do." After groaning for a moment, the eyes of Chen Zi were gone in the eyes, and said, "What the father said, should it have something to do with the Bingshen Chuanren?" Zia said, "Good, Chen." Yu looked at the daughter in front of him and nodded with satisfaction. It was indeed his most important son-in-law, but he could understand his intentions with a little bit. It seems that the snow hall is handed over to Zia's hands, and it will definitely not come to an end. After recovering his thoughts, Chen Yu went on to say, "For the father wants to follow the side of the ice god." Chen Zi asked, "Why is me?" "Because you have saved him once before, more people who can accept him than others. Now the Bingshen Chuan people are not particularly trusting our snow temple. Seeing our loyalty to the heir of the Bingshen." Chen Yu said, "My daughter must do my best." Chen Yu nodded with satisfaction and continued, "Wait until the young master leaves the land of the polar northern north, and then you will follow him to leave. And this time, you must protect the Bingshen Chuanren. If you encounter you, even if you are their enemies, that cannot be solved, must notify the father as soon as possible and do their best to protect him. Father, rest assured, I will definitely protect the Bingshen heir." Chen Zi kneeling solemnly on one knee, and at the same time, he silently added a sentence in his heart, "Even if he sacrificed my own life, he was it all I have suffered me." Chen Yu walked in front of Chen Zi, patted her shoulders and sighed. "It didn't take long to come back from the killing of the temple, so I had to travel away from home. This is the daughter's own choice." Chen Zi went to shake his head and said seriously, "If my father has nothing else, I will go back to prepare first. The reason why the snow temple was established is to wait for this moment, to protect the Bingshen Chuan. Go back." Chen Zi arched a gifted hand and then exited the room. While looking at the back of Chen Zi's departure, Chen Yu sighed deeply, hoping that everything would really be as he wished to get the trust of the Bingshen heir to the Temple of Snow. Although Chen Yu can understand Lingtian's thoughts, he still hopes to gain trust as soon as possible. And if you want to gain trust, you must contact Lingtian. So compared to other titles, Douluo, the Morning Zi who has saved him is undoubtedly more. In addition, Chen Zi is still his daughter, and there is absolutely no problem in identity. Although Chen Yu reluctantly, the most suitable candidate now is only Chen Zi, and he gives this task to her to perform. 3 months later, the Dao Empire. The 4-year-old National Elite Soul Contest, the qualifiers of the Qian Power Division, will officially hold a grand opening ceremony in Qian Dou City. Today, the opening ceremony was held in the Qian Dou Soul Farm in Qian Dou City. As a major event in the Soul Division world, so to the royal family, nobles, and the people are attracted a lot, and the soul field of the Dou Soul. As early as a month ago, the tickets in the opening ceremony were already available for sale. You know, the price of these tickets is the same as the entry price of the Soul Fighting Soul Center of the Dou Soul Field. In order to meet the requirements of the competition venue, the Qian Dou Soul Field also stopped all soul competitions as early as a month ago, and conducted internal transformation. Because of the rules of the Soul Master Contest, they opened up the soul fighting souls in the soul fighting venue and combined them into a huge game venue, providing a broad space for these Seoul divisions. In addition, it is necessary to expand the auditorium, at least 80,000 people. Then add some similar lounges, medical rooms and other places for competitions. The entire renovation plan is estimated to invest at least tens of millions of gold and Seoul coins. However, the transformation of the Qian Dou Seoul farm has invested a lot of funds, but all the competitions in the Qian Dou division will be held here in the future. The benefits brought by the daily valuable tickets on the game day can definitely make the Dou Das division. The Seoul field has a considerable part of the interests. It is precisely because of sufficient benefits that they will willingly transform the Dou Seoul field. In the early morning, the sky has not been fully bright yet. The Dou Seoul field is already overcrowded. Because many people are looking at those young and outstanding Seoul masters on the first day. Many who are rich and girls are also fantasizing that they can find their own white horse prince. Among them, some of the imperial nobles are also standing outside the Seoul fighting field at this moment. The National Elite Seoul Master Contest gathers all genius Seoul masters. As long as they can solicit them, they are bloody for their family. Centered on the Sky Dou Seoul field, almost 1/3 of Qian Dou City is a scene of 1,000 people. And as early as a week ago, all the hotels in Qian Dou City were full, and countless people were watching the wind and watching this huge Seoul Master contest. For a while, the city increased by 50% of the flowing population. It can be seen how powerful the attraction of the Seoul contest in the hearts of everyone. In order to prevent riots due to this competition, Qian Dou City mobilized a full 5,000 city guards to maintain the order in the city. At this moment, the voices in the Qian Dou Seoul field. The audience is already full of the audience in the front. There are no seats on the entire square, and the audience's shouts and cheers can be heard everywhere. In front of the central field, there is a podium made of gold as the background. VIP area. The wide field diameter is more than 150 meters. Each college enters the venue, and there are special departments on the podium to introduce, and then stand in the center of the venue and set up a team to wait for the team behind. After the left and right teams entered, the MC stood on the side of the VIP platform, said, "Below, His Royal Highness of the Empire of the Qian Dou Empire announced the opening of the competition. This thing should have come forward by Zuai in person. But his recent body is good and bad. In order to avoid any accidents, Zuai gave this opportunity to Qian Renxue and let him take the opening of his own competition. Anyway, they are all their own, and everyone is the same. Father, Emperor, go, don't let me down." Yes, Qian Renxue gave a gift to Zuai, and then slowly got up in the applause of Rainier for this year. Because of Zuai's body, many important occasions have come to face by Qian Renxue. In addition, the prestige among the people, who have always been harmonious. How many? Chapter 173. It would be great if you were still there. She smiled gently, then raised her right hand and waved lightly to the audience and the participating Seoul masters below. The applause quickly stopped, and the square became silent. Immediately, a deep and loud voice spread throughout the audience through the amplified Seoul guide. "I, Zuking, the Crown Prince of the Qian Dou Empire, today, on behalf of my father, the Qian Dou Empire, and the organizer of this competition, announce that the Pan-Continent Advanced Seoul Master Academy Elite Competition is now open." The applause thundered again, and cheers came and went. But Qian Renxue's eyes suddenly dimmed a bit, and she murmured in her heart, "If Xiaoshan was still here, would he also participate in this competition? It would be great if you were still here." A bitter smile appeared on her face. However, the sad expression quickly disappeared, and he continued to speak loudly. "Those who can stand here are all talented Seoul masters of our Qian Dou Empire. I'm proud to have you in the Qian Dou Empire. Here, I sincerely hope that every Seoul master participating in the competition can exert their full strength and achieve good results. You are all the pride of the Qian Dou Empire. Now for the glory of the empire, shine your own light." The audience burst into applause again. Once, the eyes of the Seoul masters in the center of the competition venue were filled with burning brilliance. For all of them, such a competition would be the best stage to showcase themselves. But, Yi in the stands showed a hint of appreciation in her eyes and was very satisfied with Qian Renxue's performance on the stage point. When Qian Renxue finished speaking and returned to her original position, the master of ceremonies' voice sounded again. Now, I would like to invite Mr. Ning Fengzi, the master of the Qibao glazed sect, to give a speech for this competition. As Ning Fengzi stood up, applause appeared again. This is the #1 support person today. I didn't expect to see sect leader Ning again. I made a lot of money this time. It's actually sect master Ning. If we can make sect leader Ning take notice, we probably won't have to worry about training resources for the rest of our lives at this moment. Both the participating soul masters and the audience, everyone looked at Ning Fengzi eagerly. As the #1 auxiliary soul master in the soul master world, and the leader of the richest sect in the world, who wouldn't want to see it? His style point. Ning Fengzi smiled slightly and pressed his hand softly. I am very happy to be invited to be the opening guest of this competition. Point. As the leader of the Qibao glazed sect, I have witnessed the growth of too many soul masters. As the most noble profession in the mainland, the development of every soul master must go through many hardships. But what I want to say is that the edge of a sword comes from sharpening, and the fragrance of plum blossoms comes from the bitter cold. Point. Those participating in this soul master competition are undoubtedly the elites of the younger generation. Point. As King said just now, I hope you can bring glory to the empire, and also bring glory to your own college. The empire needs talents like you. Thank you. Listening to Ning Fengzi's speech, His Majesty the Emperor of the Qian Dou Empire once again had a smile on his face. Later, when asked by the MC, Ning Fengzi expressed his optimism about a team. But in the end, he played a trick and did not reveal the specific name of the team, leaving all the spectators on the field in suspense. After all, there are 28 teams on the field. After Ning Fengzi returned to his seat, the master of ceremonies smiled again and said, unfortunately, Sect Master Ning did not ask about the team he was optimistic about. Next, I would like to invite the master of Qian Dou City Spirit Temple, Platinum Bishop Salas. Your Excellency will draw lots for the first round of qualifiers. After the draw is over, the Qian Dou Royal Academy Vice team will compete against their opponents drawn in the first round. This will also be the only game today. As soon as he finished speaking, Salas, the Platinum Bishop of Wuhan Palace, walked onto the stage and began to draw lots. The opponents of the first round of the 28 participating teams were listed in sequence. The first round of the qualifiers, Kanghu College vs Purple Star College. In the first round of the qualifiers, Auckland College faced off against Flame Glory College. The first round of the qualifying round, Qian Dou Royal Academy vs Shrek Academy. The draw will end soon. What are you doing? How did you draw lots? Shrek Academy. Is it that garbage academy with an advertising slogan? Qian Dou Royal Academy beat Shrek. That's not casual. Cheating. Yes, this is completely shady. The popularity of Qian Dou Royal Academy is too ugly. For a time, there was an endless stream of boos and boos. Even many spectators in the audience shouted the word cheating loudly without caring about the face of the Qian Dou Royal family. The second team of Qian Dou Royal Academy is obviously looking for a soft persimmon, because in their opinion, Shrek Academy, which has a strange appearance, is full of tricks, and has no reputation, does not look like a team of soul masters at all. Just like a group of clowns after the drawing of lots, the Platinum Bishop Salas glanced at the audience and said calmly, I feel that the drawing of lots is not false. I swear by the honor of the Spirit Hall. At the same time, I'm here to announce that the Spirit Masters present for all the participating students from the Academy who can advance to the finals. Wuhan Temple will make an exception and allow them to directly join Wuhan Temple. As soon as this statement came out, the audience was fine, but the soul masters in the venue were already in an uproar. Martial Spirit Temple, apart from the Pope's Palace and the Douluo Palace, it is the highest place of the Wuhan Palace, and there are only one in the capitals of the two major empires in the entire continent. The Pope's Palace is the exclusive place for the Pope. The Douluo Palace is also a symbolic existence. Therefore, the status of the Wuhan Temple is actually the highest institution in the Wuhan Temple. Being able to directly enter the Wuhan Temple is, for a person, For soul masters, it can be said to be a shortcut to improve their strength. Not only does it have the best treatment, various training measures and the honor of the spirit temple, it is all very attractive to ordinary soul masters. Upon hearing these words, Emperor Zuai's face turned completely gloomy. Is Wuhan Palace trying to poach people? Qian Renxue suddenly stood up, put her hands behind her back, and glanced at Salas lightly. Her calm eyes full of majesty point at this time she must stand up. As an emperor, if Zuyi opened his mouth, it would appear that the Tian Dou Empire had no room for people. Only Prince Qian Renxue is the most suitable. Besides, Salas had already finished what he needed to say, and the Soul Master below had already had an idea. Stopping at this time would have no impact. In addition, speaking at this time would gain Zuyi's favor, so why not? Salas wanted to reply, but when he saw Qian Renxue, he said in a dull voice, I don't dare. Then, he silently returned to his seat. Seeing Qian Renxue shouting away Salas, Emperor Zuai's expression finally softened a bit, and there was a look of relief in his eyes. The master of ceremonies also spoke at the right time, and brought the situation back to normal again. Okay, then the first match of the first round of the qualifiers, that will be held next, is between Qian Dou Royal Academy and Shrek Academy. Each participating academy will withdraw. Please be prepared for the two academies that will compete later. Half an hour later, the game officially begins. After a short break, all members of the two teams took the stage again. After the contestants for this game were introduced, the other players who were not participating in the game stepped down one by one, leaving only the 14 people participating in this game on the central field. The first match of the Pan-Continent Advanced Soul Master Elite competition is between Shrek Academy and Qian Dou Royal Academy. Now I declare that the match has officially begun. Following the referee's order, the two teams immediately began a fierce battle. At this moment, at the VIP table, Emperor Zuyi looked at the arena below with a smile, and said to Ning Fengzi beside him, Sect Master Ning, it seems that there should be no suspense about this match. Ning Fengzi smiled slightly, and agreed. However, Zuyi didn't know that Ning Fengzi felt that there was no suspense, but he was referring to another team. Salas on the other side suddenly said, Sect Master Ning, can you tell me which of these 28 teams is the one that you are optimistic about, and can be regarded as a championship contender? Your Excellency Salas, wouldn't it be better to keep it a little mysterious? I think you also have a team that you support, right? Ning Fengzi smiled gently and skillfully avoided Salas's question. So, sect leader Ning is not going to inform you? Siraspi said with a smile. Ning Fengzi smiled calmly and said, this is a sect's own secret, and it seems to have nothing to do with Sir Salas. You. Salas's face darkened visibly. Emperor Zuai, who was sitting in the middle, frowned slightly. But he still stood up to smooth things over and said, you two don't have to be impatient. After this competition is over, whether you are optimistic or not will be decided naturally. Bishop Salas and Sect Master Ning are right. Whoever you are optimistic about is his own thing. Platinum. Bishop Salas glanced at Emperor Zuyi and said calmly, Your Majesty said yes. Then let us watch the game. Ning Fengzi never looked at Salas from beginning to end. His Majesty ahem. Just when Ning Fengzi was about to speak, Zuyi suddenly coughed violently. Father, seeing Zuyi coughing so violently, Qian Renxue immediately stepped forward to pat his back, showing her filial side in time. Nothing, it's the same old problem. Although he said this, Emperor Zuai's face turned pale as he coughed violently. At the same time, the energy that he had managed to raise was completely consumed by this violent cough, and his whole body became sluggish again. King, I'll leave this place to you. I'll go down and rest first. Zuyi waved to Qian Renxue, and then said slowly, my son is here, so my father can rest assured. Qian Renxue nodded and said softly, and then called a few servants to help Zuyi slowly leave the arena. Your Majesty, this body. When Ning Fengzi saw this scene, he couldn't help but shake his head and sigh. Even though he and Zuyi had been friends for so many years, he couldn't help but feel emotional when he saw Zuyi like this. Chapter 174, Condensing the Soul Core, Seeking the Moon. But fortunately, Zhuyi has a good prince. If he really couldn't hold on with Qian Renxue, the Ming Lord, the Qian Dou Empire would not have declined point at this moment. Someone asked, Your Majesty, what is this? Under the confused gazes of everyone at the VIP table, Qian Renxue clasped her hands and said with a chuckle, If my father needs to deal with anything, I will be in charge of this place temporarily. Please understand, the affairs of the court are more important. Your Majesty has many things to do every day, so we can understand. Your Majesty's move really puts us to shame. Prime Minister Wang is right. Everyone at the VIP table clasped their fists in return, and at the same time they opened their mouths to compliment each other. Seeing this, Qian Renxue smiled and nodded, then returned to Ningfeng's side. Looking at the fierce battle below, he asked Ningfeng softly beside him, Teacher, is junior sister Rang Grang in that team? Yeah. Ningfeng nodded slightly. So, teacher, the team you value most is that team, right? Qian Renxue's eyes flashed, and she looked at Ningfeng thoughtfully. Nothing can be hidden from King Ningfeng, he said with a smile. Although it is not directly acknowledged, it is already self-evident. Although the two of them did not mention that team in every sentence, and kept talking in riddles, they both knew that the other party was talking about Shrek Academy. Teacher, are you so confident in them? Qian Renxue said in surprise. I have met those kids once. Each one of them is very talented. There are few other teams here that can rival them. Originally, the Imperial team was the most likely to win the championship, but it's a pity that Ziotian, alas. After looking at Qian Renxue, who hesitated to speak, Ningfeng shook her head regretfully. 12-year-old soul sect in the entire Douluo continent. Who can reach it? What a pity the life of a genius is destined to be full of twists and turns, and Lingtian failed to grow up smoothly in the end. It's a pity that Ziotian has left. Qian Renxue's calm tone completed Ningfeng's words, but under her calm eyes, her hands couldn't help but clenched into fists, and there was an unspeakable sadness buried in her heart. In everyone's eyes, Lingtian Zuking recognized a younger brother. It was normal to be sad and angry for a few days over his accidental death, but if it lasted for too long, it would likely arouse suspicion and even further affect the entire Wuhan Palace plan. So she could only bury this emotion deep in her heart, but she misses Lingtian as much as anyone else. It's just that she can't say Lingtia Palace when she takes the Qian Dou Empire into her hands. She must kill Lingtia Palace to avenge Ziotian. Thinking of this, Qian Renxue's eyes flashed with murderous intent. Yes. Ningfeng sighed helplessly and did not notice Qian Renxue's change. At the same time, Prince Zuxing, who was sitting in the second row, proudly said to the people around him, Look, both His Majesty and Sect Master Ning have seen that there is no suspense in this match. Our students from Qian Dou Royal Academy are the real elites. This is just the second team. Our home team has only one goal this time, which is to win the final championship. Although Zuxing has been dismissed from all positions by Qian Renxue, he has also served in Qian Dou Royal Academy for decades. If the academy can achieve good results, it will add some luster to his face. I don't think so. Previously, Sect Master Ning only agreed with His Majesty, but he didn't specify which team he was optimistic about. At this moment, Meng Shenji retorted, Ming Jiao is the person in charge of Qian Dou Royal Academy. Isn't it inappropriate to exaggerate other people's ambitions and destroy your own prestige? Seeing that the person who spoke was Meng Shenji, Zhu Crossing suddenly said displeased. It is well known that the three educational committee members of Qian Dou Royal Academy are from the prince, and Zuxing has never dealt with them. Especially after Qian Renxue removed all his positions and handed over all his powers as acting dean to these mortal enemies, he became even more disgusted with Meng Shenji and the others. I remembered. The Shrek team below seems to be the same garbage academy that the Meng Education Committee wanted to absorb into the academy some time ago to replace the Emperor's second team. Zuxing narrowed his eyes and smiled. If that's the case, the Meng Education Committee would have to thank me. If I hadn't helped you drive this team away and let them really appear in the name of our Qian Dou Royal Academy, it wouldn't have been possible. What? A big joke this must be for the royal family, HMPH. I hope that, when the battle is over, His Highness the Prince can still laugh. Meng Shenji snorted, and said sarcastically, Pointy knows very well the strength of Shrek Academy, especially the child named Tang San. Although he is not as good as Lingtian, he is still a rare genius, so, when he saw that Shrek Academy was not the only one with all the Shrek 7 monsters, he already understood that the second Emperor Dao team was definitely no match for them if Zuxing hadn't suddenly appeared and disrupted the matter. Those children from Shrek Academy would now be fighting on behalf of the Qian Dou Royal Academy. Pointy is even worried now. Will the Royal Dou team be their opponent? Alas, with a sigh, Meng Shenji thought of the young man who amazed him again. Who would have thought that after such an experience, the child would never come back? The first time we met, it was like goodbye forever. How wonderful it would be if he hadn't died. In this pan-continental elite soul master competition, their Qian Dou Royal Academy would definitely come out on top. If I, the king, can laugh or not, I won't bother the Meng Education Committee to worry about it. At the same time, Zuxing glanced at Meng Shenji and said coldly, the Meng Education Committee should worry about yourself now. I heard that there seems to be something wrong with Huang Dao Team 1. Don't worry, Your Highness the Prince. Meng Shenji sneered, then turned away without saying anything more. While the Pan-Continent Advanced Soul Master Elite competition was being held with great enthusiasm, the far north was still as quiet as ever at this moment. In the Ice Temple, Lingtian is sitting cross-legged in the inner hall, surrounded by dozens of 10,000-year ice marrow. To break through from level 47 to Soul King in 3 months. In addition to talent, the help of genius treasures is also indispensable. Among the many genius treasures, 10,000 years ice essence is undoubtedly the most suitable. With a thought, the energy in the 10,000 year ice marrow was drawn out and turned into wisps of ice blow light beams pouring into the body, turning into pure energy, constantly washing through the meridians to increase the soul power in the body. As the energy in the body is continuously converted into soul power, feeling the continuous surge of filled soul power, Lingtian, who had just broken through the 49th level, now feels like he has made a breakthrough again. Brush, brush, brush. Pure soul power continues to pour in, hitting the bottleneck of Soul Sect and Soul King. I don't know how long it took, but Lingtian's body suddenly trembled slightly, and he felt as if something was broken inside his body, and a crisp cracking sound sounded in his ears. Then, before he could think about it, strong energy suddenly condensed in his body. Lingtian was overjoyed and quickly pulled the soul power, letting it circulate smoothly in the meridians, allowing the body to adapt to the changes brought about by the breakthrough of soul power. After the soul power has been running smoothly for a week, Lingtian's aura has also stabilized at the Soul King realm point. After adjusting his breath for a while, he began to pull the soul bone. Soon, a piece of right arm soul bone wrapped in red light broke out of the depths of the Ice Temple, came to Lingtian, and came to Lingtian. With a thought, Lingtian quickly began to absorb the soul bones with the experience of the previous 2 absorptions and the transformation by divine power. The absorption of the soul bones this time is very fast. It takes less than half a day for you to integrate the soul bones into your body. Heaving a long sigh of relief, Lingtian stretched his waist. This time, not only did he break through to the Soul King within 3 months, but he also absorbed 2 soul bones in succession, which greatly improved his strength. Just when Lingtian was about to end his training, he saw several ice marrows with more than half of their energy remaining below, and a unique idea suddenly flashed in his mind. He plans to use the remaining energy to condense the first soul core. This was not Lingtian's sudden idea. Condensing soul cores was his long planned plan. And now, he feels that the time has come. Condensing the soul core requires soul power, structure, and mental power, because what Lingtian wants to condense first is the ultimate ice soul core that he is most skilled in controlling. With the improved mental power of the previous soul bone in his head, it can now control the transformation of soul power forms. Coupled with the experience of successfully condensing soul cores, he is confident that he can condense a soul core with the minimum consumption of mental power. As for soul power, he has already surpassed the Soul King point. Although Lingtian's soul power is only level 50, if we just talk about the purity of the soul power, even he can't compare to the Soul Saint. In addition, there is also 10,000 years of ice marrow to provide energy, so there is no need to worry. The consumption of soul power when condensing soul causes for the body's ability to withstand it. There is no need to worry about this. The dual body refining of yin and yang creation pills of ice and fire. The crystal of life taken in the Stardao forest. And Laogu transformed into the golden dragon king's martial spirit. Before leaving. These 3 upgrades have greatly enhanced the strength of Lingtian's physical body, and it can now withstand the huge energy generated by the transformation of soul power from liquid to solid. He has now met all the needs to condense the first soul core point. Although he has not yet reached the soul saint level, he has already reached the minimum requirements for condensing soul cores, so Lingtian can now try to condense the soul core. But before that, he still had to explain to the Snow Emperor with a thought in his mind. Lingtian walked out of the inner hall. At this moment, the Snow Emperor, who had sensed Lingtian's breakthrough aura, had been waiting at the entrance of the hall for a long time. Father, God, have you successfully broken through? Lingtian said warmly, but I plan to continue to condense the soul core, and I will ask Xiaoxu to protect it for a while. You want to condense its soul cores now? Snow Emperor frowned slightly, his beautiful eyes filled with worry. She is very clear about the danger involved in condensing soul cores. When Lingtian condensed soul cores in his previous life, he was also in the Soul Saint realm. Now he is still in the Soul King realm. Can Lingtian successfully condense soul cores? Chapter 175 The Ultimate Ice Soul Core, Condensed. Seeking the Moon. Yes, but condense the soul core. Lingtian raised his hand and patted Snow Emperor's shoulder gently, smiled confidently, and said, this time, I have no better than before, so this time I condense the soul core. I have 80% of my grasp to successfully condense. I see. After listening to Lingtian's explanation, the concerns in Snow Emperor's eyes gradually dispersed. You still have to be careful. Rest assured, I will succeed. After the enlightenment of Snow Emperor made her no longer worry, Lingtian no longer delayed the time to close the temple door again, and began to try to condense the soul core. Lingtian stabilized the mind first, adjusted his mental state, closed his eyes, and then let the mental power circulate in a container, and checked the soul power in the body again. After everything was ready, he slowly raised his right hand. The next moment the soul power began to flow out. Under his control, a group of ice blue liquid gathered in the palm of the palm, and no soul power overflowed out. The soul power gradually became more, and began to hang up from Lingtian's palm, and rotate slowly. Under his control, the rotation speed of the soul power began to increase, and at the same time, it began to slowly compress. With the process of compression, Lingtian also enhanced the soul injection. The ice blue soul power gradually became sticky, but the rotation speed continued to accelerate under the deliberate control of Lingtian. It can be seen that there is a layer of dark blue light around the ice blue soul power. It is this layer of light that makes the liquid soul power not disperse. I have to say that Lingtian's control is really strong. After changing other soul masters and even soul saint, if you release your own soul power like this, but not to show his soul skills, the most direct result is to cause the liquid soul power to vaporize rapidly, and then dissipate in the air. It can be said that this step alone is already difficult to reach. A large part of the soul master time slowly passed, and the soul power in the hands of Lingtian gradually became solid. At this moment, Lingtian's original calm face finally became dignified, but under the control of his mental strength, the soul still did not shift at all, retaining stable rotation. The soul power changes from liquid to solid state. It is difficult to imagine that this is what a soul king can make. Compression, compressing, rotating, and then rotating. Gradually, the solid state soul power is completely formed, and the horrible suction power spreads directly outwards around the solid soul power. The twisted light lines began to become more and more obvious. The violent suction absorbs the energy of the ice marrow surrounded by the surrounding 1,000 years. The blue airflow is at the heart of Lingtian, gathered into a small vortex, and constantly absorb the pure heaven and earth in the icy ice marrow. At the same time, the soul power in Lingtian's body is constantly absorbed. However, the speed is within the scope he can bear, and there will be no embarrassing situation of insufficient soul reserves over time. The solid soul power is increasing. Under the control of Lingtian, The solid soul power continues to increase stable and continuously, and the heaven and earth in the ice marrow in the 10,000 years is also quickly absorbed. The original ice blue ice marrow faded down at the speed of the naked eye. The time for 1 minute and 1 second. Despite the assistance of the ice marrow for thousands of years, Lingtian's own soul power has also been incorporated into this solid soul power. As the rotation speed is getting faster and faster, he can no longer stop it from stopping now. This solid state continues to rotate. Once Lingtian fails now, under the double blow of mental and soul power, it may be necessary to cultivate about a week before trying to condense the soul core again. 50%, 60%, 70%, the speed of solid soul power. Rotation is getting faster and faster, so that Lingtian cannot capture its movement, and the most important thing is that as the speed speeds up, the soul power output is not stable before end with failure. Ice God's pupils open. The ice blue eyes are a bit cold. Under the observation of the Hitoma of the Ice God, the rotation speed of the solid soul power finally slow, and the soul output of Lingtian's soul power also resumed the first stability of the beginning. The soul power is still gathered to the ice blue light group in the palm. When 80% of their own soul power was absorbed by the solid soul power, Lingtian had to distinguish a part of the mental strength to control the body and slow down the passage of the soul power in the body. Otherwise, because the soul power consumes a faint point at this time, the original ice blue soul power gradually deepened. This is a manifestation of the attributes of solid soul power, which means that Lingtian is fast successful, and it is also the most dangerous moment. At this moment, Lingtian's forehead was sweaty, and his face became pale. Even though he has always paid attention to the use of mental strength, he has been consuming high intensity, and now his mental power has been exhausted, but Lingtian still strives to control the stable rotation of the solid soul power at this step. He has to try it anyway. Fight. Lingtian gritted his teeth and turned his last spiritual force into a soul impact and was completely injected into that solid soul. Boom. At this time, the solid soul force trembled and the solid soul power of the rapid rotation stopped. The space began to suddenly collapse with his body as the center. Lingtian quickly stabilized it. Then, he saw that he had already left his right hand, and the solid soul power not far from him began to collapse, and finally became a black hole vortex. Around the black hole vortex, the ice blue lines revolved around the entire black hole vortex like space cracks. Success. Success. Seeing that she was successful, Lingtian was happy. He is very clear that this is the ultimate signs of the ultimate ice soul nucleus. However, at this moment, the vortex suddenly shook violently. Originally, the vibration of this level, as long as he used the mental power slightly, he could suppress the fluctuations of the vortex at this moment, but after the consumption just now, Lingtian cannot be mobilized at all now. Without the suppression of mental power, the fluctuations of the vortex are getting more and more intense. Click, click, the black vortex, which was already close to the stable, began to break out of the soul at this moment. Is it going to fail? As the black hole becomes more and more unstable, the expectations in Lingtian's hearts are gradually breaking. The energy shock formed by the collapse of the black hole, sweeping it. At this moment, Lingtian only felt that the eyes were dark and all the consciousness disappeared. Even if you have experience, you start to consolidate the soul core at the level of the soul king, which is still too adventurous. This is Lingtian's last idea. He did not expect that he would fall in the last step of condensing the soul nucleus. He obviously gathered in the end, but lost his work. Lingtian's eyes slowly closed, and his head slowly hanged. Click. The black hole in front of me suddenly trembled, and it collapsed more than half of the instant. Just as it was about to be completely broken, a golden light suddenly bloomed behind Lingtian, and gradually converged into a golden dragon's shadow, and then the dragon mouth spit out a beam into Lingtian's heart. Bite. The next moment, the ice god mark on the forehead instantly lit up. The originally dried mental power in the sea space, filling up again under the influx of the beam. Leo. Gu. Lingtian, who recovered consciousness, knew that the situation was urgent, and the convergence mood did not delay at all. Immediately mobilized the mental power, to stabilize the soul core that is about to break point. Brushed Lingtian, which was already close to the coma, accompanied by the appearance of the golden dragon behind. Not only has the mental strength recovered rapidly, but the speed of the output of the soul power continues to increase. Point at the same time, the collapsed black hole vortex rolled again, and the ice blow lines expanded around. Again. Point it soon returned to the beginning of the beginning. Time passed by every minute, and the golden dragon behind Lingtian was like a entity began to become more and more illusory. Point the soul nucleus finally returned to the beginning and started the final transformation. Point boom, the space collapsed. A little influence in the center of the vortex was enlarged in an instant, and the vitality between the heavens and the earth crazy came up. It was just a moment. The soul power contained in the ice marrow on the ground was swept away. Point click. At the same time, a crisp sound sounded. Point after the 10,000-year-old ice marrow on the ground was absorbed by the energy. It was broken into the ice crystal fragments of the star. The next moment, the black hole vortex stops the absorption of soul force, and the ultimate ice soul nuclear condensation is completed. It's this my soul core opening his eyes through the pupils of the ice god, looking at the crystal clear soul core. Just a glance, as if his soul seemed to be sucked into it. Point this soul core is very beautiful, like the blue ice crystal. It is crystal clear, and at the same time, because it is the ultimate ice soul cohesion, each rotation of it can bring up a cold chill. Point at this time, the soul nucleus has formed. Point no longer absorb Lingtian's soul power. It is just to absorb the heaven and earth in the air softly. Point however, after the success of the soul nucleus, it means that Lingtian succeeded in half, and it is necessary to integrate the soul nucleus into the body. Point this process is also very dangerous. If you are not careful, you will be destroyed by the soul of the soul nucleus. Therefore, Lingtian was not in a hurry to absorb the soul core, but sat down in front of it. Point his soul nucleus is very stable, and he will not collapse without integrating into his body for the time being. Point he silently absorbed the energy in the ice marrow and the thousands of years, while restoring his soul power, and observing the change of his soul nucleus every time the ice blue texture flashes. A cold meaning can come. Point when the soul and mental power are fully recovered, Lingtian takes a breath and is ready to fix the soul core. Point with a gently hook his fingers, the soul core flew to his chest position and slowly merged in. Lingtian's body suddenly shook violently. In Zhangdanshan, it seemed to inject an indescribable terrorist force. Point this is the most critical step. Only in the soul nucleus income can he really complete the condensation of the soul nucleus, and if you want to open up the soul core, you can choose 3 places, namely eyebrows, chest and anshan. Point the most difficult position of condensing the soul core is the eyebrow heart point, because it is close to the brain, that is, the so-called sea of spirit. The most dangerous capacity of the container is the most dangerous. If you care about it, you will be dispersed by the soul power, causing the spirit to collapse. End of this chapter. Thank you very much for reaching the end. Don't forget to like. Looking for more exclusive content and immediate access? Subscribe to our Patreon. Remember, every like, subscription, or donation encourages us to continue. Thanks to everyone. See you in the next video.